Welcome back to the channel. This is Freddy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto was neglected by his family and adopted by Sparda. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Ka-chan. Mother, can we have ramen for dinner tonight? Now Naruto, you know you have to eat your vegetables to stay healthy and become a strong shinobi like both your Ka-chan and Tu-san, said the woman with red hair. Sigh as mother and daughter departed, the blonde-haired girl said, "Okay Ka-chan." Naruto point of view. Observe them. I'm willing to wager that they are unaware of my existence. Everything revolves around her, and I am left in the dark. Naruto Uzumaki is my name. When a nine-tailed demon fox attacked the village 10 years ago, many shinobi engaged in combat to stop it from moving further. Using the Shiki Fuin, Death Reaper seal, my father, or rather, my sister, was able to split the fox in two and insert it into our bodies, sealing it into us both. When the villagers found out which of us had the soul, I was given it, while my sister received its chakra, the fox's yang energy full of evil and malice. My life turned into a living hell after that day because the villagers believed I was the real fox. My sister was given preference over me by my parents, who disregarded me throughout my life. When I asked them to train me, they rejected me and told me I would learn in the academy. I was aware of the Kyuubi, and it was always said that Naruto needed to master the use of its chakra. The villagers retaliated months later, and for the next 6 years, I was beaten, stabbed, and stoned. Satsuki, the youngest child of Fugaku and Makoto Uchiha, was my only friend. They were the only people who made friends with me, along with her mother and older brother Itachi. My sister laughed and teased me when my father once caught me practicing Fuinjutsu. I was reprimanded and sent to my room. My father was out back training Naruto, and my mother didn't even notice me entering the compound, so now I'm limping home with a stab wound. After entering my room and locking the door, I lay on my bed and gripped my bleeding wound while staring at the ceiling. Consistent POV. When will it be over? Naruto pondered in his mind. I'm sorry, how many times must I tell you that it wasn't your fault, Kurama? Since his first beating, Naruto and the demon fox have been in contact. Although Kurama holds himself responsible for Naruto's misfortune, Naruto has consistently assured him that he is not to blame for what transpired all those years ago. I'd like to go. What? Naruto never finished his sentence because tears were streaming down his face, which made his wound worse. I want to get out of here. My parents don't give a crap about me. They always focus on Naruto just because she has your chakra. What's the point of being here? So I can be a punching bag for the villagers. They see my sister as a hero and me. Since the soul needed to fully control his chakra, Kurama said, if it makes you feel any better, she can't control my chakra without you. Yeah, that does make me feel a little better, Naruto said, wiping the tears from his eyes as he chuckled. After gazing at the ceiling, he went to his desk and took out a piece of paper and pencil. He then wrote down his plans and the events of his life over the years. His family would become suspicious if he went downstairs for supplies, so he put the pencil down, put a kunai in his pocket, opened a window, and climbed down. Ignoring his slowly healing wound, Naruto ran. He noticed the hateful looks he was getting from people, and some of them started throwing rocks at him. Despite some of the blows, he kept running. He hobbled outside the village gates 10 minutes later, covered in blood and bruises from the stones thrown at him. After 20 minutes, he was deep in the forest and relying on trees for support when groups of Chunin and Jonin with blunt and sharp weapons suddenly materialized. Naruto knew that shinobi couldn't hurt him inside the village walls, but they weren't there, were they? As the 10-year-old blonde was being clubbed and stabbed by the shinobi, Naruto bit his lip to endure the agony. The shinobi turned around to see several creatures that appeared to be wearing burlap sacks, had 2 peg legs, and a large blade attached to their arms. Scarecrows. One Chunin started making hand signals, and a large blade shot out through his chest. A Chunin said, "What the fuck are those things?" Before deflecting a blow, the shinobi started to fight off the strange creatures, but they were defeated and gutted like the pigs. Thereafter a second one fell and sliced him in half. As the lesser demons started to move toward Naruto, he crawled to the base of a tree and turned to face them. He thought to himself, looks like this is it. Looks like it. Kurama sensed something, or rather, someone, when Naruto closed his eyes and waited for death to embrace him. The hell? Where's all that demonic energy coming from? When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw the demons being cut in half. He turned to face his savior, a tall man with silver white hair, regal violet clothing, and a big broadsword. Time seemed to slow down, and all Naruto could hear Kurama say was, "Sparda." The man gave Naruto a quick glance before focusing on the scarecrows. He then charged and started chopping the demons to pieces. The man placed the sword on his back, which somehow attached itself, and knelt in front of the bloodied blonde after just a few minutes of killing them all. "Are you all right, little one?" As he was gradually losing consciousness, Naruto attempted to speak when he noticed the man take a medium-sized glowing green star, vital star, out of his pocket and give it to him. He said, "Crush this in your hand, you'll feel better." Naruto reached for it and followed his instructions. Naruto turned to arigato as the green energy began to flow into him, restoring his vitality and causing his bruises and wounds to heal. "Don't mention it. Now do you mind telling me what it is you're doing all the way out here?" asked the man. "I ran away, my village rather have me dead, and my family doesn't even know I exist. These wounds, they were given to me by the people of my village and by those shinobi," he said while pointing to the deceased shinobi. "Tell me everything, little one," Sparda scowled. Sparda became increasingly enraged at the villager's treatment of a child after Naruto told him about his life, from his first beating to his departure. When Sparda asked Naruto if he knew why he was treated that way, Naruto hesitated before telling him that he and his sister were ensconced by the nine-tailed fox as a Jinchuriki. Sparda recognized Naruto's suffering and took a choice that would alter both his and the world's course. "Little one, would you like to become like me? Like you? A devil, one of the most powerful demons in the netherworld?" Looking down, Naruto started to reflect. His parents never gave him a glance, everyone preferred his sister, the entire village was vying for his head, and he had already made plans to flee. What could he possibly lose? When Naruto turned to face the white-haired devil and nodded, Sparda took his sword, cut open the palm of his hand, and asked Naruto to follow suit. Sparda offered his bloodied hand and gestured for him to shake it, and Naruto slowly reached out and clamped his hand with the devil as he winced as the blood poured out of his palm. As Naruto started to spasm, he fell to his knees while holding onto his body with his other arm. Red and purple vein patterns started to form on his hand and crawled up his arm toward his entire body. It felt to Naruto as though someone had removed his internal organs and stuffed something else inside. Naruto lost the ability to handle the pain and passed out. Sparda released the blonde's hand and took the boy, carrying him away and out of sight. Namikaze compound. Konoha Naruto was eating ramen with joy when she sneaked into her room, but she stopped when her breathing became labored and her chest felt heavy, as if a piece of her had died. After gathering herself, Naruto put the ramen cup down and walked out of her room. Feeling uneasy, she headed downstairs, counted the number of people, found one missing, and went to her brother's room. She gulped and reached the handle to open the door, as though entering her twin brother's room would trigger the end of the world. For the first time, she peered inside her twin's room. Everything was gray, with clothes arranged neatly in their closet and drawers and books arranged properly on the bookshelf. When she took the picture out of the frame, she discovered that the side where Naruto was standing was ripped off. She then noticed a note and read it. She had seen her family on the desk with the picture frame on it, but Naruto was not there. "Greetings, Namikaze. Without me, I could only marvel at how wonderful this family is. Mom will always listen to her and forget I'm even here. Dad will stop worrying about me and concentrate more on Naruto, and the villagers will keep making my life miserable for nothing I did. I've always wondered what my life would be like if neither of us had Kyuubi's remnants inside of us. I was beaten for the first time on my 4th birthday, and when I met the Kyuubi, he warned me that things would only get worse. I recall my father being upset with me for attempting to learn Fuinjutsu. I recall the academy teachers telling me I was the last to die and refusing to teach me anything. I sometimes question why, since I was condemned on the day of my birth, I never had the opportunity to carry the Kyuubi's soul, and I watch as everyone applauds my sister while I remain in the dark. I therefore decided that I would leave and never return, if only so that everyone could live in peace." Naruto with the note in her hand, Naruko fled the room, her eyes wide and tears streaming down her cheeks. By the time she made it downstairs, she was sobbing uncontrollably. "Naruko, honey, what's wrong?" her mother asked as Minato and Kushina hurried to her. "Ichi's gone," she uttered in between sobs. "Who's gone?" Minato and Kushina asked, looking perplexed. "Sniff, Naruto Aniki is gone," she exclaimed, startling both parents. After Naruko gave them the note, they both read it and felt regret. Minato then summoned every Anbu squad to go find him. Kushina started crying because she had been so focused on Naruko that she had totally forgotten about her second child. When they celebrated the birthdays of both twins, they only ever celebrated Naruko's. Naruto was never present at the celebrations. Looking back, when have they ever done anything for him? She recalled that the day he had approached them to request training alongside her sister, they had simply rejected him. They were some parents. "Ka-chan? We'll ever see Aniki again? Don't talk like that, Naruko. Of course we'll find your brother. Minato-kun has already sent Anbu to look for him." Naruko looked down. "It's all my fault." "Naruko, it's not. It is. It's always about me. When has Aniki ever gotten praised? He was always left out, always by himself," she exclaimed, sobbing uncontrollably alongside Kushina. As they both started crying, Kushina gave her daughter a hug. "Where did it go so wrong? It was for the best, and now I've lost my only son," Minato said, holding his head in his office as he fought back tears. Unknown place. When Naruto's eyes started to flicker, he opened them, looked up at the ceiling, and moaned as he stood up. Looking around, this wasn't his room, it was too regal. As soon as he stood up and went to the restroom, he saw that he was a little taller than before. He was shocked by how he looked in the mirror. The things that stood out the most were Naruto's silver white hair and his glowing blue demonic left arm. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall, had crimson red eyes, and whiskers on his face were now thinner and hardly noticeable. I gave the devil bringer to Naruto on his left arm since Nero had it on his right. He turned to see the same man he had met in the forest when he heard a door click open. "I see you're up. Do you like your new look?" "Whatever became of me?" Naruto asked. "You are now a devil. Your appearance is only one of the side effects." "I'm a devil, so what comes next?" "You carry my blood within you, which means you are no longer family with your birth parents," said the man. "So that means I can't return." "Well, whatever then," Naruto said, staring at the man with wide eyes. He grinned and said, "It also makes you my son," which caused Naruto's head to shoot up at him. "Why, you're a son? As I've said before, my blood now runs through your veins, thus making you my son," he responded. For the first time in his life, Naruto smiled and gave his new father a hug. The Dark Knight returned the hug and held his hand. "Let's go meet your brothers," he said. Attracting Naruto's attention, they followed him down the enormous manor, and Naruto gazed around at how lovely everything was. "Hey Dad. This may be a little awkward, but could I at least know the name of my new father?" the man asked, glancing at his son. "My name is Sparda. What's your name, my son?" the man asked, grinning at his startled son without revealing his name. "My name is Naruto," he said with a smile, omitting his previous names, Uzumaki and Namikaze. They both smiled and continued walking. They made it to a large open room with lots of paintings. He looked around and saw 2 boys roughly 13 years of age, one wearing red while the other wore blue. "Dante, what are you doing?" said the blue-clad teen in a monotone voice. He was currently drawing birds flying downward. The red teenager remarked, "I'm drawing a babe." "How in the world does that look like a woman, Dante?" Looking at the drawing, he saw only 2 large jugs, he remarked. He received a drop of perspiration from the blue teen, Naruto, and Sparda for saying, "Well duh, I left out all the boring parts." "Virgil, Dante," they said as they turned to face their father and a white-haired boy of 10. "Yes, Dad?" Virgil, the blue-clad teenager, said. "Who's the kid, Pops?" Dante said. "Virgil, Dante, I want you to meet your new brother, Naruto." Hey there, nice to meet you," Naruto said as he hesitantly approached. "New brother well then Fishcake, I'm going to teach you the wonders of the woman anatomy," Dante said, putting an arm around Naruto and making a wave motion with his arm, causing all 3 of them to perspire. Virgil waved hello with a small smile. "My idiot twin aside, it is nice to meet you, little brother," said Virgil. "Hi, same here. Well then I'll leave you 3 together, I have to go meet with your mother." "How do you think Nero will react to the news, Virgil?" "Probably hoping he won't end up an idiot like you," he responded. "Hey, that's hurtful, man. So, what are your thoughts on swords, little brother?" Virgil questioned Naruto. Dante pulled out 2 M1911 handguns, one black and one white, and remarked, "Whoa, hang on a second, Fishcake, don't go to the dark side. Trust me, guns are better." "Idiot, those handheld projectile weapons can never compare to the art of swords," Virgil replied. Guns beat swords any day. Care to test that theory?" Virgil asked, picking up an O-katana. As they exchanged death glares and sparks of lightning, they charged at each other, with Dante firing bullets and Virgil deflecting them. Naruto watched in amazement as his new family trashed the place. He heard a door click and another teen with silver hair emerged, who appeared to be a year younger than the other 2. He held out a glowing blue arm and said, "Oh, you must be Naruto. I'm Nero. Welcome to the family." Damn it, this is my story, even though I know how Nero got his arm." He pointed to his left arm and said, "Hey, you've got one like me." When he saw Dante and Virgil dodging it, he said, "Whoa. They tried to convert you, didn't they? If by convert you mean which of the 2 weapons is better, then yes." "Well, shouldn't we stop them?" they said as they sat down and kept watching the altercation. Naruto inquired. "Nah, it's fine. Even if we get stabbed or shot in the head, it won't kill us, trust me," said Nero. "I think I'm gonna like it here. Naruto said with a smile as he glanced at his new family. After 5 years, Naruto, who had grown a few inches to be 5 feet 9 inches, was sitting on a rooftop overlooking a city. He was dressed in a black trench coat and undershirt, with dark gray combat pants and boots covering his lower body. He had a necklace that looked like a cross made of a sword, wing, and devil horns, and he wore black fingerless gloves with a metallic cross set into the backhand. DMC symbol. The guard was shaped like an open dragon head with wings. Alistair had a big broad sword on his back, and had a gun holster with Kurama in his first form. M1911 SS with kanji for 1, fastened to his hip. When Naruto saw a man fleeing from a swarm of scarecrows, he stood up, stretched his muscular body, and leapt to the ground. Naruto pulled out Kurama and quickly fired rounds into the lesser demons, setting them on fire as the man stumbled and was about to be gutted when he fell, crushing the scarecrow. Yes, Kurama has incendiary rounds. Vortex. He exclaimed, spinning his body and sword around, slicing any demons that were within range or too close. He then put Kurama away and brought Alistair down on an unwary scarecrow, the sword crackling electricity before he charged in. Split. He exclaimed as he leapt to his feet, slamming Alistair to the ground, splitting a scarecrow in two and sending a shockwave that pushed back another scarecrow. With a judgment shredder motion, Naruto leapt into the center and spun around, chopping and slicing every scarecrow in his path. As the scarecrows were being torn to pieces, he stopped and laid Alistair on his back. He turns around and approaches the man, who is now trembling violently. Naruto confronts him, saying, "You didn't see anything," before leaping back to the rooftops. In most countries and cities, it's common for the population to not know about demons. However, in some places like Fortuna, demons run rampant. 3 years ago, Nero moved there and became a member of the Order of the Swords, a religious organization that saw Sparda as their savior. The fact that these people revered his father, a demon, as a god made Naruto laugh like his new mother Eva. He would still be with them if he were a god. The four devils had now split up, with Virgil, Dante operating Devil May Cry, a demon hunting company, and Nero in Fortuna. None of them had heard from him since the day they parted. Naruto had departed for the city, battling some demons and attempting to figure out his role in life. Sitting on the rooftops, Naruto gazed at the necklace he wore around his neck, which reminded him of their happy times together. He chuckled, recalling Dante's expression when he found out Naruto had never heard of pizza. "I wonder how everyone back home is," he said. Glancing at the moon, he wondered how his human family was doing and thought to himself, "Tisk, what the hell am I thinking? This is my home now." It's likely that his human family was unaware of his disappearance while the village celebrated. He let out a deep sigh. "Where to now?" he said till he heard someone whistle. "Fishcake, didn't expect to run into you here." "Dante? Yeah, and by the way," he gives Naruto a head bump. "Itai. That's for taking my move, then why'd you teach me it?" "Touché." They both stared at each other before bursting out laughing. "Let's talk over pizza." Praise the man that invented that. That would be the Italians. An hour later, Naruto is in Devil May Cry, Dante's workshop. They started talking about what had been happening. Even though it seemed like Naruto was the only one of the four devils that everyone got along with, of course, Dante was too frugal, and Naruto ended up paying for the pizza. One large, contented family. Dante despises Virgil, Nero despises Dante, and Virgil despises both. "So how are things going on right now?" "Finally set up shop, got the room decorated a bit, though the jukebox needs to be fixed." "And business?" "I go off when either people or Trish calls me in." "Oh yeah, how's it going with you two?" "Sometimes I really don't get her. I mean, does she have to put a bullet in my head each time she comes over, or any sharp object? It hurts, man." "Yeah right." Dante smiled and said, "Oh yeah, well what about you and Lady?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." Naruto blushes. "Tisk. Yeah right, I see the way you two look at each other, so what's going on?" His expression was deadpan. Sigh. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" he asked. Nope. "Okay, so after we dealt with Arkham and returned to our activities, we met up at this bar once and well." Naruto paused and saw Dante sitting beside him. His head shifted closer. Dante gave him a "ah" as he sat back down in his chair after he said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna say anymore." With a Cheshire grin, he asked, "So what's been happening with you, besides getting it with Lady?" As Naruto's blush deepened to Dante, this meant that he was correct. "Well, it hasn't really been the same since we all separated. I just took off trying to find my place in life." "Ah, don't go all hippie on me." Chop. Dante's head was bopped. and he was comically smacked on the now cracked table while smoke billowed from his head while showing off his devil bringer. Naruto remarked, "Don't compare me with them." "Did you have to hit me with that arm?" he said with an X-shaped bandage on his head. "That aside, have you heard anything from Nero and Virgil?" shrugged Naruto. "Tisk. All I know is that Nero joined the Order of the Swords working as a demon hunter. That's about all I got. And Virgil, haven't heard of him since we separated," he said while eating his meal. "I see. So, what are you planning to do?" "I think I'm going home," Naruto thought for a moment. "What? Back to the estate?" "No, back home, my birthplace." "Really? I thought you hated it. Isn't that why you became a devil?" "It is, but I don't know, I guess I feel a bit nostalgic. I mean, yeah, the villagers treated me like a monster, but there were few that actually cared for me. I guess I just want to see them again." "Well, that's understandable. See, you're like a cross between all three of us. You're a brutal on the battlefield, but kick back and relaxed off it, and you care about others." "What, and you don't?" Naruto raised an eyebrow, and he started to perspire when he noticed Dante posing in front of a mirror. He said, "Yeah, I do think that people tend to die around me, and it's only better to make friends with someone of my kind. You know, they last longer," which made Naruto perspire more. "Right then, so you're going back to the Vale. Do you have any idea how to get there?" After pausing, Naruto discovered that he didn't. When Sparda carried him across, he was unconscious. Yeah, I've got no idea." He picks up the phone, puts it up to his ear, and begins dialing, saying, "Then there's only one person to call." "Yo Trish, what's up?" Right, my bad. Listen, my little brother needs help getting to the Vale." "Yeah, I thought so too. Bermuda Triangle." "Are you serious? Alright then, I will see you tonight," he said when he heard a gunshot coming from the other end of the line. "Bermuda Triangle? That's where the Vale is?" Naruto exclaimed after hanging up the phone. "Yeah, pretty much," Dante remarked as he took another bite. He took a slice and said, "Well, might as well go right now, before getting up to go." "You're coming?" he asked, seeing Dante follow suit. He put on his red trench coat, put Rebellion on his back, and put Ebony and Ivory in their holsters before saying, "What, I'm bored." Naruto leaves after shaking his head. When they reached the port 30 minutes later, Naruto was searching for a fight that they could seize when a red barrier resembling a web materialized. "Well, looks like we have something to keep us busy," Naruto remarked, removing Kurama from his holster as hell prides and leg scarecrows started to emerge from swirling black portals. After removing Ivory and Ebony, he exclaimed, "This party is getting crazy, let's rock." Naruto held Kurama in his right hand with his DB clenched into a fist, ready when he needed it, while Dante held both of his akimbo weapons sideways as they both started firing a barrage of demonic bullets while standing back to back. Boom! The bullet tore through a spinning scythe and made a pride's head explode. Headshot. Naruto concentrated as Kurama began to glow a crimson-red flame and pulled the trigger. The scarecrows were easily defeated, while the Hell Prides avoided some of the bullets or blocked them with their scythes. Dante used Ebony to block an impending side slash. He then pushed Ivory beneath the prince's chin and pulled the trigger, piercing the prince's skull. When Naruto leapt onto a crate, Kurama's kanji changed to 7 and transformed into an intervention sniper rifle. Dante leapt into the air and spun downward, firing a rain of bullets, gunslinger, as Naruto fired rounds into the unlucky prides. He landed, grabbed a pride, and used it as a club, smashing it against more prides when his danger senses kicked in. Naruto continued to snipe prides. He ducked to the right to avoid pride's scythe, kicked it on its knee, crushed it, and then struck it with the sniper's butt. Naruto used one hand to hold the sniper to its face before pulling the trigger, causing the pride hit to fall with a broken leg. "Hey Dante, throw a bone," he exclaimed as he leapt down. After slapping another pride, Dante threw the one he was using at Naruto. He caught it with his DB and smashed it with another with a powerful swing. He then spun around, gathering more prides and hurling them at a truck, which exploded after returning Kurama to his initial form and putting him in his holster. Naruto summoned Alistair and exclaimed, "Stinger." He then delivered a forceful thrust that skewered 3 prides. When Dante ran at Naruto and put a foot in his hands, he jumped with Naruto pushing him upwards. "Hey Fishcake, give me a boost." Naruto sank Alistair on the ground and put his hands together after landing in the middle of the prides. Dante quickly dispatched Rebellion and Dance Macabre, before destroying the rest of the prides with a barrage of sword slashes. As the barrier starts to crumble, Naruto lifts Alistair off the ground and lays him on his back. Dante put Rebellion on his back and remarked, "Well, that was fun. Yeah, let's find a bout before people start to notice the fire," he said, gesturing to the burning truck authorities, and people started to arrive. and 10 minutes later they took a speedboat out of there with some gas canisters. Hey Dante, do people usually see you fighting demons? Almost never, usually when something big happens that when I have to take center stage, and you? Not really, if a demon appears I couldn't really care about what most people think. I mean, it's better to be with me than another demon. Dante took a bite out of a piece of pizza and said, that's true. Naruto took a slice of pizza and said, what the hell did you bring pizza without me noticing? As they sailed across the ocean, Dante remarked, I'm magic, that's how. The Konoha 5 years have passed since Naruto vanished, and Naruto has started to train more in an effort to locate and reunite with her brother Kushina, Minato, Satsuki, Mikoto, and the Icharakas were the only people in the village who knew that Naruto was still alive on the day of Naruto's departure. Minato dispatched a search party, which lasted for nearly a year. The Namikaze were overcome with guilt, believing that they were to blame for Naruto's departure. Right now her along with Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi were giving their report on their finished D-rank mission. Dad, can't you just give us a higher ranked mission? We're more than ready, Minato said, receiving nods from her teammates as she continued to go through more lists of D ranks. Iruka, their academy teacher, said, what are you two talking about? You can't take on higher missions until you've completed at least 40 D ranks. Relax Iruka, if they think they're ready then fine with me. Kakashi, your team will receive a C rank mission. Your mission is to escort a bridge builder to Kiri and guard him until he has completed construction, Minato said, and Naruto and her team looked up brightly as they finally received a challenge. Bring in Tazuna. They turned around to see a drunken man. What, these kids are supposed to be my escorts, they don't even look like shinobi material, the man said. Sir, I can assure you that my team is more than capable of protecting you. Tazuna finished the sake bottle and said, okay, make sure you do. The Florida coast. They were only a few miles from the Vale when Naruto and Dante got off the boat to grab some supplies, like gas and a shitload of pizza. Naruto had taken a map, and they were sailing away when the weather started to change 3 hours later. As fog rolled in they slowed down as they started to see reefs on the water's surface, and as they cruised around the rocks, he started to wonder why there had been so many disappearances within the triangle. His answer came when the water started to get rough and a giant tentacle fish-like demon appeared. Well, I see now. Naruto thought. The demon screamed in agony and dove into the water after Naruto fired a demonic rocket at Kurama, which penetrated its skin. Dante fired demonic enhanced bullets that didn't appear to penetrate the demon's shell after Naruto removed Kurama. The kanji changed to 9 and the handgun transformed into a SMAW. Dante, go. I can hardly see anything, he said as Dante climbed into the driver's seat and sped away, leaving the area as the demon rose up and clamped its jaws. The kanji on Kurama changed to 8. Transforming it into a minigun. The barrels spun and unleashed a barrage of demonic bullets. The demon screeched in agony before retreating back into the water. Naruto looked at Dante and Dante looked at Naruto before the two started laughing. The fog began to clear, revealing a coast. They cruised alongside it, noticing the sunken ships and airplanes. They stopped by a beach and got off, saying, so this your home? He walked into the forest, Dante following, saying, not sure, I was unconscious when Dad got me out of here. There's only one way to find out. They kept walking when they started to detect traces of demonic energy, and he asked, you feel that? Dante remarked, yeah, this place is crawling with demons. An armored reptilian demon with a shield on its arm, assaults, was heard, so they halted and turned to look around. Naruto pulled out Kurama and shot it in the forehead, causing it to fall and roll on the ground before melting away. This only made more appear. This day just keeps getting better and better, Naruto said. Firing more rounds. Dante turned around to see more coming their way, so he brought out Rebellion and started to swing away. Naruto was about to sheath Kurama when he was tackled by an assault that took him deeper into the forest. Adjacent road. They were heading toward Wave Country with Naruto and her group. Kakashi had just told them about the importance of the cages and the nations when he spotted a puddle. They all passed it, and two figures were about to leap out of it when they all heard gunfire. What's that? Sakura said. Don't know, but it sounds close, said Kakashi. Then they saw a couple trees get knocked over heading their direction. What is that? He thought. All of you guard Tazuna, he said, taking out 2 kunai. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke took position when, out of a tree came a white-haired teen wearing a black trench coat and shirt, with dark gray combat pants and black boots, with black fingerless gloves which had a cross on the backhand. He had a Zanbato on his back and some weird L-shaped weapon. The teen was being forced back by a humanoid lizard. In a swift motion a spectral blue arm appeared, grabbed the demon and slammed it to the ground. The teen brought out the L-shaped weapon and in a loud bang the lizard's head exploded. More lizard demons ran out and the teen shot them all in the head. He holstered the gun and ran back in the direction the demons came from. Naruto had watched the entire thing and noticed something the others didn't, the barely visible whisker marks on his cheeks. Naruto. Was what Naruto was thinking. What on earth just took place? Sakura almost screamed. You better have a good explanation. We were sent to protect you from bandits. You never said anything about demons, Kakashi said to Tazuna as he observed the dead demons' bodies melting away. A sad story, and he says he's being pursued by shinobi. He said, drawing gulps from the team. And Tazuna, we shouldn't even continue this mission. With shinobi after you, this should be a B rank mission, and with demons lurking around the area, this could be an A, maybe even S rank. Sensei. What is it, Sakura? Where's Naruto? Kakashi's head shot up, searching the area for his pupil, concentrating on finding her chakra signature. What the hell is she thinking? Kakashi made 5 shadow clones to protect Tazuna. Sakura, you stay with Tazuna. Sasuke, you're with me, he said, leaping after Naruto with Sasuke in tow. A few seconds later, he discovered her, heading in the direction the white-haired teen had gone. When Naruto noticed the white-haired teen running ahead of her while she was jumping from tree to tree, she accelerated her pace because the boy was moving at unimaginable speeds. She watched him halt and send another lizard demon flying. By kicking it in the head, she landed on a tree and watched the fight while hiding. When Naruto kicked the claw at Dante, he brought out Alistair as rebellion returned to Dante. Dante threw his sword like a buzzsaw, hacking away more assaults. When their swords started to glow crimson red and Alistair's electricity started to spark uncontrollably around the blade, they yelled, "Drive!" and sent a crimson red shockwave that disintegrated the remaining assaults in a single lightning-fast sword swing. After bumping each other's knuckles and placing their swords on their backs, Naruto heard his name called and turned to face his sister. Fuck me. In contrast to her parents, Naruto was unable to speak as he gazed at his sister. Even though it wasn't entirely her fault that he was treated that way, he was somewhat pleased to see her, but he was primarily angry with her for doing nothing to assist him prior to his transformation into a devil. Naruto, is that really you, Naruto? He uttered, frowning slightly. Okay. This is awkward. I'm gonna wait for you over there, Dante said, glancing back and forth between the two as he approached a tree. Naruto gazed at her brother, and she was alarmed to see that his eyes had changed from the clear blue of a young child to crimson red like the fires of hell. What had happened to her twin brother? His hair had turned silver white instead of blonde like her father's, and the whisker lines on his cheeks were hardly noticeable. Naruto asked, sounding a little irritated, so, you have something you want to tell me? Where were you? Do you have any idea why we went through to look for you? He said, wow, I didn't think you actually cared, and Naruto winced. Why would Minato send a search party for me? All my life Minato and Kushina only ever cared about you, and all because you had Kurama's chakra. Oh drama, thought Dante as he brought out a pizza box and taking a slice. Naruto looked down, and he was correct. For the first 10 years of her life, she had been a pampered brat, and her brother's departure was all it took to change that. Naruto raised her head when he said, I know it's not your fault. The only reason I'm mad at you is that you could have done something to prevent my suffering. Everyone listens to you, so why didn't you? Naruto remained silent, or rather, was unable to speak. Just then Kakashi and Sasuke jumped down from the trees. Naruto, have you lost your mind? There's demons running around this area and you go after them. There aren't any demons in this area at the moment. If there was, I would have detected their signature. Really? Well then I must thank you for getting rid of them, said Kakashi, glancing at the silver-haired teenager. Yeah, if you excuse me I must take my leave, he said, doing a mock bow. Aniki, uttered Naruto. Aniki? Naruto? Kakashi thought. I'm not coming back, Naruto. We can fix this, Naruto, just give us a chance. Naruto and Kakashi gave him wide-eyed looks when he said, we aren't even blood-related anymore, so just stop. Sasuke was perplexed. What are you saying? Without responding, Naruto turned and left, saying, I've said too much already. After finishing the pizza box, Dante turned to face his younger brother and stood up. Hey wait, said Naruto as she saw the man dressed similarly to her twin. Can I help you with something? Dante asked, pausing to look at her. You were the one fighting the demons with my brother. Do you know what he meant by us not being blood-related? Well, he said it perfectly clear. You're no longer related to him by blood, Dante said, placing a hand on his chin. I don't understand. I mean to say that he's no longer part of your family, he's part of mine. Kakashi squinted. It's possible that Naruto moved in with this white-haired man, but that doesn't explain how Naruto's loss of his brotherhood relates to this. You see, the day Naruto left the village, My father found him battered and drowning in his own blood, he said, causing Sasuke to look shocked and Naruto to gasp. What my father did was offer him a place in our family. Naruto accepted it to get away from the pain he was dealing with. My father transferred his blood into him, making Naruto a devil, a very powerful demon. He said they were overcome with emotion. It's funny, he always said that the village he was born in shunned him and called him a demon. Now he's become one. Dante remarked as he turned to see Naruto sitting on a tree branch. The knowledge was difficult for Kakashi to process. His sensei's son was now a demon. What would Minato and Kushina think of this? You think I care? Even if he's a demon, he's still my brother, Naruto remarked, her eyes welling with tears. Big words, kid, but saying them to me isn't going to change anything, Dante said, turning to face her and grinning slightly as Naruto leapt from the tree and left with Dante. So that was the brother of Naruto? The cocky Uchiha thought. Those weapons look like they're powerful, and I'll make sure they give them to me the next time I see them. I finally sob find Aniki Hika and he hates me, was Naruto's sob at this point. Now, Naruto, I'm sure your brother doesn't hate you. He might be a little mad, but that doesn't mean he hates you, Kakashi says, placing a hand on her shoulder. I hope so. She wipes her tears. Naruto. Me and my big mouth. Yup, so what are you going to do now that your previous family knows you're a demon? They don't know yet, just Naruto and her team. Sigh, it was a mistake coming back here. Well, what now? He headed back to the boat and said, let's just get out of here, only to discover it was gone. With a speedboat in its grasp, they witnessed a tentacle emerge from the water and bring it down, crushing it beneath the force of the water. After staring at it for a short while, Dante laughed and said, payback's a bitch, while Naruto moaned and pinched the bridge of his nose. I despise that giant fish. Now that I think about it, looks more like a cross between a squid and a gator. He said, I don't care what it is, I just know that I'm gonna kill it, as he removed Alistair, which was now electrified and ready to electrocute the ocean. Dante grinned and said, I don't think lighting works in salt water, which caused his younger brother to groan loudly and lay Alistair on his back. Whatever, let's go explore the area, he sighed as he made his way back into the forest. Wait a minute. The pizzas were on that boat, Dante said, pausing his pursuit. No. When Kakashi, Sasuke, and Naruto returned, they discovered two Kiri-nuke Nin restrained by their own chains. He used his cage bushin to restore their memories. He turned to the genin and asked them if they should continue. Sakura voted no, but Tazuna overruled her and she carried on with the mission. Receiving gratitude, Sasuke and Naruto voted yes. Sakura said, hey Naruto, who was the white-haired boy? With a dejected expression, Naruto said, it was my brother. But didn't he disappear all 5 years ago? Yes he did, and sadly he's not the same as he was before he left, Kakashi said, filling in the blanks. What do you mean? As he and Naruto continued walking, he said, let's drop the subject and leave it at that. Sasuke-kun, do you know what he's talking about? Without glancing at his fangirl, he declared, Naruto's brother isn't a Namikaze anymore, he has demonic blood running through his veins. Naruto's brother was a demon. Sakura exclaimed. How would her parents respond? I thought to myself. As they approached, they noticed that the temperature was dropping and that snowflakes were starting to fall from the sky. Genjutsu? Knowing it was late spring, Kakashi thought, Kai, and made single-hand gestures. As they approached, Tazuna proposed that they use the boat to cross in order to avoid Gato finding them. Nothing happened, and they all wondered why it was snowing in Kiri. Naruto muttered, whoa, that's a big bridge. That it is. Once it's finished we'll be able to use it as a trading route for supplies. It will give us some hope to live on, Tazuna said. Kaji, the boatman, said, hey, please keep it down. I would really appreciate it if you could avoid being discovered. Blizzard? What's going on? Asked Sakura as they left shore and made their way to the lake, where the temperature dropped and the wind grew stronger. They arrived at the fully frozen lake and observed that the blizzard had subsided there. As they proceeded around the lake, they noticed a barrier that resembled a blue spider web. Naruto Dante was crying anime tears over the loss of all his pizza boxes as they walked deep into the forest. As they went on, they became aware of the weather change and asked, it's late spring, so why is it snowing? Maybe demons, Dante said, moving past his pizza loss. As snow started to cover the ground, they kept walking until they heard a snap and stopped when Naruto put a hand on Alistair. He listened intently. When he heard a second snap, he dropped the broadsword, but a blue, ethereal arm grabbed it. Nero. Naruto. Dante. Nero, how's it going? I haven't seen you in 4 years. Naruto said as they shouted their names and hugged each other after a brief period of silence. Yeah, haven't from you guys either. What are you guys doing here? This is little bro's birthplace. He was feeling nostalgic, so we came to visit and ended up being stuck here. Giant squid thing? Yeah, you too? Yeah, I was sent here to deal with demons that were plaguing these countries when I got attacked by sad squid and was left stranded here. Well, love to continue with our chat, but with all this snow we're beginning to think it's a demon. That's cause it is. Demons have begun popping up all over this place. It's like they choose this to be their little hiding place, Nero replied. After removing Kurama, Naruto said, well then, shall we? As Naruto approached and stopped, he turned and shot Dante in the head. Ladies first, Dante said. He continued, not funny man, while Nero laughed uncontrollably. They kept moving forward, feeling the demonic energy growing as they saw the approaching blizzard and fled in the direction of the freezing winds. As soon as the three of them set foot on the frozen lake's waters, a barrier made of blue spider webs materialized around it. The kanji for 1 changed to 2 and changed into dual FMG9 when Naruto pulled out Kurama. Dante produced ivory and ebony, while Nero produced blue rose, his double-barreled revolver in costume. When they noticed 2 glowing red women who appeared to be rather nude, the blizzard appeared to lessen. Baby yeah, was Dante's whistle as he skated over to observe them, and Naruto and Nero both started to perspire. They both thought, I'm starting to understand why Trish keeps hitting him, until they smelled an awful odor. Nero exclaimed, geez, what is that? Wonder if it's these demons, or are they? A giant toad-like demon emerged from the blizzard, opened its mouth, and ate the devils. As Naruto and Nero approached Dante, who was lying down observing the floating Rusalka, the demon started to eat, but it tasted nothing. Huh? How did you know? Exclaimed the demon as a puke-like substance splattered from its mouth as the 3 devils landed on the other side of the lake. You can hide that body, but that smell, who? There's no covering that up, said Dante. Well, what do you know, it's even more ugly than that squid we ran into, replied Naruto. Insult me one more time and I'll make you suffer more than you thought possible, roared the toad demon. In order to protect themselves from Dagon's breath and potential mouth fluid, Naruto, Nero, and Dante used their coats. In fact, I'd like to see you try, Nero said. Play Frozen Frog's Devil May Cry 4 OST. When Dagon was 5 feet away, Naruto prepared his left fist and delivered an uppercut with a blue, ethereal arm punch that sent Dagon flying. Nero and Dante leapt aside as Dagon lowered its head and launched itself with its mouth open. Nero leapt above it and smashed it back to the ground with his own ethereal arm. Dante was beside it when it hit, shouting, drive, and sending a visible red shockwave that struck Dagon and sent it flying across the lake. The area turned completely black as it rose again, shook, and roared, his mouth emitting a violet-like aura. When Dante and Naruto saw the Rusalka jump down, they both started shooting akimbo weapons while the siren demons dodged. Nero then got close enough to strike with his Red Queen costume blade, unaware that Naruto was charging at it with Alistair drawn and charging electricity. Dante ran at the first Rusalka and jumped over it, causing it to follow Dante's movement. Naruto then let out a horizontal slash streak. The Rusuka's color deepened and then dropped to the ground as it shook from the 10,000 bolts that ran through its body. Both Naruto and Nero used their devil bringers to seize the sirens and drag them by their legs, forcing Dagon out and wiping out the darkness. Nero slashed away at his target, causing it to lose color as well, before joining the other on the ground. Dagon roared again, pushing the 3 away before they could approach. Large icicles were launched at them by it as it jumped back and shook its back. Nero ducked. Dante fired the icicles, destroying the ones that were approaching, and Naruto charged Dagon, dodging the falling ice. On the sidelines, Team 7 stood staring at the battle in front of them, while Naruko was amazed at her brother's actions. Sakura was terrified that demons were fighting. Kakashi was shocked that his sensei's son and his companion, along with another white-haired man, were facing a giant toad demon. Sasuke was staring at their weapons with hunger, and Tazuna rubbed his eyes and threw away the sake bottle. Returning to the frozen lake before Naruto could leap, Dagon roared once more, sending glaciers and solidifying Naruto. Naruto was approaching quickly until Dagon's throat swelled and glowed a red or violet hue. Aniki! Exclaimed Naruto with a shout of, hang on fishcake, and, round trip. Dante sent rebellion flying. Before Dagon could pounce, the broad sword swung horizontally and sliced its eye. Naruto's left arm glowed blue before emerging from his frozen state with an ethereal arm. He sneered as he jumped over Dagon, grabbed its tail, lifted it off the ground, and slammed it a couple of times on the ice, cracking it, after glancing at his left arm and seeing the cloth torn off, revealing his devil bringer. Nero quickly grabbed Dagon's tongue with his DB and stretched it before launching himself inside the demon's mouth and slashing Dagon's insides. Dagon was left dazed and had his tongue protruding. Dagon let out a roar of agony, but it was powerless to stop Nero from piercing Dagon's body upward before the siren ripped off the demon's antennae and released it to fly across the lake once more. Naruto leapt over it once more, grabbing one of the Rusalka, pulling it, and swinging Dagon around. The song's conclusion. Don't think this the end, there are more of us, Dagon said as he slowly stood back up. Before it could finish, Dante leapt into the air and slashed downward with rebellion, stopping the demon's rambling before it turned to ice and exploded. Give or take? Dante asked Nero and Naruto, who both turned to face him. Hey, you killed it, you take it, Naruto said. While Nero shrugged, the toad demon's soul was still floating in a blue orb. Dante glanced back and then extended his arm, causing the orb to fly in his direction and quickly transform into a small case with a demon skull in the middle. Dante questioned, wait, did he say there were more of them? Naruto looked at the Rusalka corpse in his hand as it absorbed into his devil bringer and said, probably more around the area. All three of the devils laughed when he said, man, I hope I can find a tailor, I liked my coat. Team 7 stood in awe as the blue barrier started to break and disappear. That was fantastic. Well done, Aniki, Naruto thought. Wonderful to defeat a demon in that manner, but why would Naruto murder his own family if he is a demon? Scary, a terrified Sakura thought. Imagine what they could do to a village if they could defeat a demon like that. With a nearly mad expression, Sasuke thought, I must have them, another weapon. Tazuna thought, I should have hired these guys. Two Kiri Nuke Nin stood atop a tree and had seen everything. The masked hunter Nin remarked, they're a strong bunch, aren't they, Zabuza-sama? Yes, let's leave for now, the bridge builder can wait. Zabuza-sama, are you certain? Before he left, he glanced back at the white-haired teen, more especially at his glowing left arm. Yes, Haku, let's go, he said. Dante knocked on Pandora a few times, wondering what was inside. Naruto removed his coat and hung it over his left shoulder to cover his devil bringer. Nero slid the sleeve in his right arm down to cover his DB and put a black glove on his hand. Team 7 stood still, staring at the three devils who had defeated a large demon. The blizzard started to fade and snow started to fall. Naruto and his brothers left the frozen lake as it started to melt and returned to the forest. Naruto wanted to follow, but he was probably still upset with her as you're home close by. The words, huh, oh yes, follow me, came out of his trance. Aniki, was Naruto's thought as she turned to face the forest opening that Naruto had entered. Naruto was currently walking ahead of the two as they made their way through the forest, and Nero decided that this would have been a good opportunity to inquire. Psst, Dante, what's up with Naruto? He just met up with his sister. He probably wants to avoid talking to her since she wants him to come back to her family. Sister? That red-haired girl back at the lake, the one with the whisker marks, he responded. Naruto, who was up ahead, gained a tick mark on his head. He didn't really like it when people talked about him and more about his past life. He about to say something like, you know I can hear you, but was cut off by a demonic presence. He turned in the direction and then back at his brothers who seemed too distracted in their conversation to notice. He sighed and rushed to the wherever the demonic energy was coming from. Tazuna's house. Tsunami was outside taking clothes off the hanger back inside when the wind began to pick up. She was about to open the door back inside when a large spear of ice hit the door. She quickly turned around to see lizard-like demons with ice-based armor. Frosts. She screamed as they charged. Her yell was heard by Inari, her son, who had rushed out of the house, and Team 7, who ran toward the area. When Tsunami felt no pain, she slowly opened her eyes and saw a white-haired teen with a frozen claw through his stomach. Hey, that friggin' hurt, he said as he pulled out the claw, grabbed its leg with his devil bringer and swung the frost around a couple times before throwing it at the other frozen demons. He pulled out Kurama and the kanji shifted to 6 and morphed into an XM-25 grenade launcher. He pulled the trigger and out flew a glowing red grenade round which blew up before the frosts could get up. The explosion caused Team 7 to run faster and also gained Nero and Dante's attention. Naruto walked up to a frost as Kurama reversed back to form 1 and back into his holster and brought down Alistair. Team 7 arrived to see the blade sink into the demon. It spasmed before turning into ice and melting. Naruto turned to see his sister again and let out a sigh. We really can't meet up without me killing a demon in the process, can't we? He joked, placing Alistair on his back. Are you alright? And, what happened? Inari and Tazuna hurried to Tsunami and gave her a hug. She then turned to Naruto and said, Arigato, for saving my life. When he used his coat to throw the frost at the others, it fell off his shoulder. Naruto walked back, picked it up, and slung it over his shoulder again. "It's my job, don't mention it," he said, scratching his head with his right hand. However, he saw that they were all staring at him, so he followed their gaze until it stopped at his devil bringer. "Wait." When he halted and turned to face Tsunami, she said, "I owe you my life. If you want to, you could stay at our place for the time being." Naruto sighed, considering that the boat was broken and that there was really no way back without getting hit by the squid demon, leaving them stranded with nowhere to stay. "Arigato, we'll take up on that offer," he replied. "Are there any more?" she inquired. She nodded and he said, "Just my two brothers, don't worry, they won't make a mess." Naruko was grateful. She must have been fortunate that Tazuna's daughter allowed her brother to remain when the other two devils appeared. She was startled out of her reverie. The red-clad devil remarked, "Ah, missed it party." The devil in blue and red said, "Well, we weren't paying attention, so how were we supposed to know?" As both Nero and Dante recoiled, Naruto turned around and said, "You know it's best if we go inside, with it snowing one could catch a cold. Maybe that wouldn't have happened if you two hadn't been talking about me," he said sweetly, ticking his head, and receiving nods from Tsunami and Kakashi. "No. I have to spend the night with 3 demons," Sakura cried in her head while anime tears streamed down her cheeks. "Time to take what's rightfully mine," Sasuke grinned. Half an hour later. "You know, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if you weren't staring at my arm," he said as his devil bringer was in full view. After a long moment of silence, he signed, "I'll be on the roof," grabbed his coat, went outside, and leapt to the roof. Kakashi turned to Dante and Nero, who were having their own conversation, and said, Excuse me," getting their attention. "Do you mind if you answer some questions?" "All right, just so you know, we won't say anything too personal if it's involving Naruto," Nero remarked as he and Dante exchanged a shrug. "That's okay, let me start by asking, where has he been all this time?" "He was with us for the past 5 years. He spent the first year in our father's manor in England, then moved over to New York after our parents' death," said Dante. Since the manga, anime, and game don't say exactly where Dante's shop is, I'm using globe locations to do things additionally, because Sparda is constantly dressed in regal attire. I really couldn't think of anywhere other than England, so yeah, my fault. "England? New York?" The group listened with wide eyes as Nero clarified, "They're countries outside the Veil?" And Kakashi thought to himself, so there is different world beyond there. "Only problem is getting out. We ran into a giant squid-like demon that crashed our boat and now we're stranded here," said Nero. "I see, next question, and this is kinda personal, but what is that on his arm?" When everyone started staring at his glowing blue arm, Nero turned his head and revealed his right arm, which was identical to Naruto's left. "This is what our father called the Devil Bringer. It's not just an arm, it's also a weapon. It can be used to guard, grab, and smash objects," Nero said, sweating. He got nods from the two and said, "Okay, last question, all 3 of you are demons, right? Why murder members of your own race?" he said, and Dante intervened. His statement that, "It's what we do," caught everyone's attention right away. He got up and went outside for some fresh air, saying, "Demons are both ruthless and most are mindless killers, but, for the record, not all demons are bad." Nero sighed, "It's hard for us. Even if people don't accept us, we will continue to protect them," as he looked at his hand, which held a golden necklace that resembled a 4-winged angel. The night went without incident. Dante fell into a deep depression upon learning that pizza was still non-existent in the elemental countries, and Nero and Kakashi had gone out to patrol the area. Naruto had remained on the rooftop, watching the stars and snowflakes fall. He heard a faint creaking sound and turned slightly to see his sister. He sighed and turned back to the stars, asking if he would mind sitting here. When she asked, Naruto gestured with his hand, and she realized that he was sitting next to her. She was wearing a coat that Tsunami had. It wasn't heavy, but it was sufficient to keep her warm. "Aniki, why don't you want to come back?" was said after a pause. After sitting quietly for a while, Naruto turned to face her and asked, "What good would that do?" He made her look at him. "If I return, the village will try to kill or beat me, though I'd like to see them try, and with what I got, the council will do whatever it takes to strip me of my belongings and your parents," he said. "What do you think they would say if they found out I was demon? I left so that you guys didn't care about what happened to me. I mean, Minato never wanted me to learn anything until I entered the academy, and Kushina, she never asked me if I wanted anything. For God's sake, haven't you noticed on our birthdays that you always had presents and not once have I received them during the party?" he said as Naruto looked down with shame. Naruto sighs and says, "Though I'm thankful for the neglection," to Naruto's startled expression. "If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have left and became what I am. I wouldn't have met my new father, mother, or even brothers. That's why, Naruto, I finally have a family that cares about me and you want me to just leave that behind and go back to the hellhole you call village, he continued. Aniki, we really missed you. He said, somewhat irate, really, so after I left you guys finally decide to notice me. I'm sorry, Naruto said as she appeared to be about to cry. She then got up and leapt back down. Naruto saw the trail of water droplets falling from her face and regretted becoming upset with her. He held his head and sighed. Mom, Eva. What would you do? Before leaping to his feet and heading into the forest. He uttered these words. Naruto was unaware that Inari was following him. After 10 minutes, Inari had been following Naruto for the past 10 minutes, wondering when he would stop, so he hid behind trees to avoid being seen. When he crossed to the next tree, he stepped on a stick, which caused it to snap, and he looked at Naruto, who vanished from his view and then reappeared in front of him. Naruto was still walking, occasionally rubbing the back of his head, until he heard a snap. Kid, why are you following me? A red web-like barrier covered the entire area before he could say anything. He asked a trembling Inari. He said, crap, kid, stay here, do not leave. Do I make myself clear? And Inari quickly nodded. As frosts blasted out of the black spiral portals, Naruto hurried forward with Alistair drawn and charged electricity, saying, streak. He did a horizontal slash which forced the frosts away. He grabbed one with his DB and swung around a few times before throwing it at another. He swung his sword like a buzz saw for a second before sending an upward slash. High time. Helm breaker. He exclaimed, leaping to his feet, doing an overhead slash downwards, effectively killing the frosts in mid-air and below. The frosts began to charge an icy mist and shoot out frozen spears at Naruto. He jumped away and rushed them with electricity sparking around Alistair. Million stab. In a blur, he repeatedly stabbed the area in front of him. In a flash of electricity, the frosts turned to ice before exploding in an icy mist. Inari stared at Naruto amazed. He turned his head to see a frost stare at him before charging. Inari fell down and closed his eyes. He heard a loud bang, and quickly opened his eyes to see the frost fall to the side and turn to ice before melting away. Inari turned to Naruto to see him holding Kurama with smoke out of the small hole barrel. Naruto placed his weapon in its holster and walked over to Inari as the barrier dispersed. You okay, kid? That was amazing. Inari nodded foolishly. Naruto laughed lightly. So you want to explain to me why you were following me? Before telling Naruto about Gato, Inari looked down. Naruto nodded and became enraged by what the man had done. When Inari finished, Naruto patted him on the head and said, don't worry, kid, you've told me enough. Next time I see the Teme, I'm putting a bullet in his head. Before more demons decided to appear, Naruto walked Inari back to the house until he was overheard by a white-haired man in a blue trench coat. Still doing what's right, Naruto, he said aloud, gripped his sheathed okatana, and left without saying anything else. The home of Tazuna Tsunami was worried that her son had gone off to somewhere unknown, so she asked Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke to check the area to see if they could find him. They had left about 30 minutes ago, and when she looked out a window, she saw her son making a snowman with the white-haired teen. She had not seen her son smile in years, not since his father was put to death by Gato. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke had just returned to deliver the bad news to Tsunami, and when he saw them, he said, hey, why don't you guys join us? Sasuke grunted and retreated back into the house, and Sakura bowed to him and said no before returning as well. Naruto glanced at the pink-haired girl before turning back, only to be struck in the face by a snowball. Whoa, Inari, you're going to let her get away with that? He said as he shook the snow from his face and turned to face his sister, who was sticking her tongue out at him. She prepared another snowball and threw it, which Naruto dodged and struck Inari, he stated. When Inari shook the snow from his face, he said, no, it's payback time. He prepared his own snowball and threw it, but missed. Gotta do better than that, Inari, she said, creating another snowball and striking Naruto once more. Naruto let the snow fall from his face before slowly whipping it off. He then brought out his DB, scooping up a lot of snow with his ethereal arm and patting it into a perfect ball. He then turned to his sister, his grin turned pale. Revenge, he said, burying Naruto in a snow pile and tossing the enormous snowball. 10 minutes later, they stopped and decided to make snow angels. Naruto and Inari made perfect angels, but when Naruto tried it, a devil with horns, a tail, and a pitchfork emerged. He sweat dropped after that. Naruto carried a sleeping Inari back inside with Naruto following. Tsunami took her son from the silver-haired devil's hands and went to tuck him in bed. Naruto went back outside and looked at the stars once more. He heard the door close behind him, and he turned to see his sister, who was staring at the stars. Naruto looked at her as she said, it was a lot of fun, and then sighed. Look, Naruto, about what I said earlier, it's okay, If you don't want to come back, it's your choice. I mean, we're not exactly family anymore, right? She replied with a tearful grin. I never got to do anything like this back in Konoha. I guess this is the first time we've actually hung out, Naruto said, looking dejected, as she returned his gaze. We may not be related anymore, but that doesn't mean we can't still be friends, right? He replied. Hi, just friends, she said with a hint of melancholy as they stood next to each other and gazed up at the sky until they noticed the various colored lights that appeared out of nowhere, the northern lights. As they watched the sky, they unintentionally held hands. Naruto failed to notice the soft, glowing light that his devil bringer was emitting. Nero, hey Kakashi, you head back, I'll take it from here. Are you certain about this? Don't worry about it, you go rest. He said, all right, then, and left for the house. As Nero moved through the area, keeping an eye out for any demonic activity, he noticed that his devil bringer was glowing a sinister violet. He swiftly turned to find an katana pressed against his throat. You're getting slower, Nero. If this were a real fight, you'd be dead. Virgil. The blue-clad devil grinned and put Yamato back in its sheath, saying, who else? Virgil. Virgil moaned a little, not being a big fan of hugs, but he gave in this time and patted Nero on the back as he half shouted and hugged his brother. Where have you been for the past 4 years? After we scattered, I returned to our father's estate. I wanted to pay my respect to both mother and father. Once I had done that, I became the local demon slayer. So that's why we haven't been getting any calls from England, said Nero. Yes, after I eradicated the country from demons, I took a boat back to the States and I ended up stranded here, he replied with a sigh. Let me speculate. Enormous squid? Don't even remind me, Virgil uttered hastily. Well, I don't think we'll be seeing any demons tonight, so let's head back, Nero remarked as he and Virgil made their way back. The home of Tazuna. As he was ready to go to sleep with her, Naruto was sitting on the couch with Naruko on his shoulder when the Uchiha came up to him and asked, can I help you? I want them, he said, narrowing his eyes. What do you want? Your weapons, all of them. Sorry, don't think so, Naruto said, glaring at the boy with the raven hair. I wasn't asking, I'm ordering you to hand them over. Unless you want me to put a bullet between your legs, I suggest you walk away. You dare threaten me? I'm the last of the Uchiha clan. Those weapons belong in the hands of an elite such as myself and not some demon. He grinned. Title doesn't mean jack shit to me. I'm going to say this again, walk away. Sasuke sneered and reached for Alistair when Naruto leapt up, grabbed his wrist, and brought Kurama to his face. Before Sasuke could turn around, he heard a click, and he turned to see Dante with ebony and ivory drawn to his face. I'd listen to him. Our weapons are something that aren't for grabs, he said with a glare that made his eyes pierce his soul. Just you wait, you demon. Those weapons will belong to me, he said. Kakashi, who had woken up because Naruto had leapt up, saw what had happened and sneered at what her teammate attempted to do with Naruto. Nodding, he said. Naruto replied, yup, I got us a target, I'm listening. Dante nodded as he said, the guy's name is Gato. Apparently he's causing poverty in the nearby village. He's slowly killing off everyone as he takes every coin they've got left. We see this guy. We take him out. Naruko's expression was worried as they discussed assassination, and she was about to say something when the door clicked open and Nero entered. Hey guys, guess who I found? He pointed back as he spoke. Virgil. He grinned and extended his arms, and Naruto gave his older brother a hug while Dante and Virgil gazed at one another. Said both Naruto and Dante as they stepped out of their seats. Virgil. Dante cheerfully half yelled, his arms spread wide. In an instant, Virgil and Dante both had their fists nailed in each other's faces after Virgil said, Dante. With open arms as well. Something's never changed, do they? Naruto and Nero exclaimed as Nero scratched the back of his head. Naruko turned to face the blue-clad, white-haired man and remarked, white hair, trench coat, big sword, must run in the family. As she spoke, Naruto and Nero's perspiration grew larger. 5 days later, time skip in the morning, Naruto, Virgil, and Nero had set out to patrol the area while Dante chose to assist in protecting Tazuna. Kakashi had taught his team tree walking, which initially made Sasuke and Sakura skeptical because she already knew this from her training with her parents. Tree walking was considered a chakra control exercise that not only helps control it but also expands one's chakra coils, so as they ran up, Sakura was able to reach the top right away because she had the least amount of chakra, which made it easier to control. Sasuke had chakra reserves of a low chunin, meaning she had some difficulties getting to the top, while Naruko had the worst control. Fortunately, her father had already taught her this exercise, and she was already at water walking. She had been able to get closer to Naruto over the past week, and even though they were no longer related, She really wanted him to come back to the village. It appeared that their brief encounter under the northern lights might have sparked unidentified feelings for the silver-haired devil. "Are you listening, Naruko?" asked Kakashi, waving a hand in front of her. Snapping out of her thoughts, "Eh? What did you say, Kaka-sensei? Is this how Guy feels when I say that?" she asked, receiving a drop of sweat from the Cyclops. The genin nodded, and they all made their way back to Tazuna's house. "As I was saying, tomorrow we'll be protecting Tazuna at the bridge, so get some rest for tomorrow," he said. Naruto, as he strolled through the village, he felt sorry for its state. Children were running about in ragged clothes, and the homeless were lying on the ground, either sleeping or starving to death. He was startled out of his reverie when he noticed mercenaries entering a club of some kind, saying, "Pardon me. Who are those people?" he queries a nearby merchant. "Those are mercenaries hired by Gato. They do most of his dirty work." "Gato," he said, "so they know where he is," before flashing a menacing smile. "Hey, is Gato in there by chance?" "Yes, the majority of us witnessed him enter. What will you do?" He approached the door and said, "Just gonna fulfill a promise I made to Inari," but was stopped by a mercenary with a pen and clipboard. He said, "Sorry, buddy, I can't let you in." Naruto glanced at him and said, "You're not on the list." Sighing, Naruto then delivers an uppercut to the man's jaw, knocking him unconscious. Hearing a series of gasps from those around him, Naruto grabbed the falling pen and clipboard with his hands, wrote something down quickly, and then let the clipboard fall on the unconscious man. The silver-haired devil said, "I am now," as he entered, glancing down at the clipboard that Naruto had written, "Fuck you," on. As he entered the main hall, he heard techno music and realized it was a dance strip club. Naruto made his way through the crowds to the bar, eyeing every inch and corner of the club, which was teeming with demonic energy. He saw a man in black with bandages around his face and a large Zanbato strapped to his back in a VIP room just above the DJ. Beside him was a woman wearing a hunter nin mask and a battle kimono. Two other shinobi in black cloaks and claw-like gauntlets were behind them, and a short man in black business clothes and glasses stood in front of the group. Naruto grinned and thought, "There's my target." "Is there anything I can get you?" the bartender inquired. "Nani? Do you mix, huh? Yes, what would you like?" The bartender gave him a nod when he said, "Take 2 of your strongest and shake." When Naruto turned back to the bartender who had returned with his drink, he saw that most of the people were now staring at him with hunger rather than the, "I would ride you all night," or, "Have you ever slept with another man?" expression. The bartender gave him a sly laugh when he said that. "You know why humans aren't allowed in here, their flesh is just so delicious," he said, drawing Naruto's attention. He stared at the barkeep as blood poured from his eyes and from everyone around him. Before the transformation was finished, Naruto brought out Kurama and shot the man in the head, killing him and halting the mutation. Unfortunately, Gato and the rest of the group heard the gunshot and turned to face the glass window, where they all started changing into the same or similar creatures. Prides, greed, gluttony, and lust. "Damn," he said. "Wonder how many I can take out before the others arrive," he said, displaying his demonic energy. As Nero and Virgil prepared to return to the forest, they sensed Naruto's signature and hurried away. Well, Nero did, and Virgil sighed and did the same. Dante sensed it, put rebellion on his back, and hurried away as well. Naruto was surrounded back at the club. Gato and the others were laughing about how long the Gaki would live, while the girl was worried about the former blonde. Naruto leapt to the DJ mixer, avoiding the slashes, and browsed the music selections, saying, "Can't kill without a good beat. Play Sent to Destroy by Comba Christ," before launching himself forward and kicking a pride away while knocking back other demons. Naruto taps his foot a few times. He then brings out Alistair and swings it, severing half of a greed's torso. He then blocks a scythe swing, grabs it, and kicks the abyss away, throwing Alistair into the air. Streak. He used a whirlwind slash to hack the unfortunate demons within range, then threw it like a buzz saw, impaling a greed before it could raise the dead. He then reached up, caught Alistair, and stabbed a gluttony, keeping it impaled. He swung his sword back, hitting an incoming pride, then swung it forward, slamming another to the ground before performing a whirlwind slash that caught prides at the edge of the blades and threw them up towards the wall. Gato was becoming a little anxious up in the VIP lounge, as the silver-haired teenager was quickly eliminating the majority of his men. Zabuza saw his anxious expression and said, "Gozu, Maizu," to get their attention. "Finish him," with a nod, and they vanished in a whirlpool of water. In less than a minute, nearly 60% of the room had been cleared out. Naruto swung Alistair, which was currently sparking with electricity. Round trip. he said as he threw his weapon in a whirlwind motion, pulled out Kurama, and the kanji shifted to two, morphing them into his akimbo machine pistols. He jumped up as the lesser demons charged him. While in the air, he performed a mid-back flip that left him upside down, stretched out both arms and fired a rain of bullets. AN. Deadpool Merc's Revenge, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. The kanji shifted back to one and holstered Kurama as he caught Alistair, which had swung back to him. He immediately turned around to block a spiked chain, saw two black cloaked figures with clawed gauntlets, and quickly realized that they were Kiri Nuke Nin. They circled around him, trying to tie him up with their connected chain, so Naruto jumped up and slashed it in half, separating them from their attack. The two charged at him once more, and Naruto started to read their movements to see if there was anything he detested, and it was being double-teamed. It didn't matter, but it sure as hell was annoying. He blocked an incoming strike and kicked Maizu away. Gozu raised his other claw and attempted to stab the former blonde, so he grabbed it with his left hand and threw him at Maizu, who was now getting up. Naruto swung Alistair a few times before charging the two, saying, "Stinger." Impaling the two nin to a wall, he yelled. Zabuza was a little angry because the two demon brothers had underestimated their opponent once more, and it killed them. Gato was starting to get scared because this unidentified boy was taking out his hired guns by himself and had just killed two of Zabuza's subordinates. The door had been sliced in half diagonally, and a silver-haired man in a blue trench coat over regal clothing with a sheathed katana in his hands was about to order Haku, the girl next to him, to go down next when they heard a loud banging sound. A large blue ethereal fist punched a hole through the wall, and another silver-haired man with a dark blue hooded trench coat and a costumed Zanbato on his back entered. A third silver-haired man, wearing a red trench coat and another Zanbato strapped to his back that resembled a skull that seemed to be screaming with a ribcage as its guard, descended from the ceiling just as Zabuza was about to order Haku to join him in fighting off the newcomers. The man crushed two lesser demons beneath them. Naruto smirked and said, "About time you guys got here." Dante grinned and pulled out Rebellion. "Hee, good you left us some." "A whole criminal organization controlled by demons, who would have guessed?" Nero exclaimed, energizing Red Queen. Virgil said, taking Yamato out of his sheath, "Let's get this over with." Each of the four devil's blades emitted a high-pitched echo as they charged the other demons, standing back to back. Play Dante's Office 7 Sins Battle in Devil May Cry 3 OST. As the four devils sliced through his remaining forces like nothing, Gato, Zabuza, and Haku watched. Tisk, Haku. "Hi. Guard Gato, I'm going down there myself." Zabuza-sama. He created 3 Mizu Bushin and went down, saying, "That's an order, Haku." Gato hoped Zabuza would get rid of the four devils so he wouldn't have to use his trump card just yet. A Zanbato blocked the four devils' blades as they were joyfully slashing and hacking the lesser demons. As they all leapt back, staring at their new opponent or opponents, "Four, apparently," Nero exclaimed. "The hell? A one-on-one battle is it? Hopefully you won't be a disappointment," Virgil said aloud. Drawing a scowl from the real Zabuza, they charged at one another, weapons clashing, sparks flying. He was blocking sword swings at the moment, and whoever he was skilled. The look in his eyes was that of a killer. He charged electricity and swung hard to counter the Bushin's current strike, and his arm glowed blue. He then threw the clone up in the air, and when the masked girl in front of Gato made eye contact with him, he used his DB to grab it from a distance and slam it into the floor, making it splash out of existence. He scowled and looked around, and he saw that there were still a few demons, but nothing his brothers couldn't handle. He then grabbed a nearby table and threw it at the window shielding the VIP room. "Be careful." As the table crashed through and embedded itself in a wall, Haku yelled. Tackling Gato away, they stood up, and Naruto leapt through with Kurama drawn and prepared to fire. Haku got in the way and threw a handful of senbon at the former blonde. Naruto fired rounds with such accuracy that the senbon collided with the bullets, knocking them both away. The girl shook her head. "I can't move," he said. He said, "Please move, I don't want to kill you," while she shook her head once more. Gato unknowingly pulled out a knife and pressed it to her throat, saying, "Back off, now," he shouted. A furious, "Fucking coward," he muttered. Zabuza was breathing heavily downstairs, thinking, "What the hell are these guys?" Dante had almost taken his head twice, and Nero and Virgil had easily eliminated his clones. In the corner of Zabuza's eye, he saw that the window's glass was broken. Haku, he thought. Leaping away from Virgil's deadly blow, he leapt through the window and saw the impasse. "Gato. What are you doing? Let go of her," he shouted. The song's conclusion. "What, and leave myself to him?" He pointed. "Remember, I'm the one who's paying you." Kill them and I swear on my entire company she'll live. As Dante and Virgil entered, he pressed the knife closer, leaving Nero to deal with the remaining demons. Gato didn't want to take the chance of Naruto shooting at his head because, on the one hand, he could kill him while he was monologuing, which would be good, and, on the other hand, he could move Haku in front of the bullet and kill her instead, which would be bad. Virgil saw the expression in the short man's eyes as he gritted his teeth and lowered his weapon. Preparing to kill the girl, Gato was about to pull the trigger when he reached into Dante's coat and took out Ivory out of fear. He threw Haku at Naruto, who caught her despite firing at the short tyrant. Dante and Virgil were able to escape. Naruto said, "You okay?" to her. Instead of responding, Haku buried her head in his chest and sobbed silently. "Dante. Virgil, follow him," he said, receiving nods from his elder siblings before pursuing Gato. He asked the man with the bandage, "Hey, what's your name?" "Zabuza Momochi, kid, thanks for saving my daughter," he said, causing Haku to look surprised. "Hey, you should be thanking Virgil for that. Guess this means we're not enemies anymore." "Looks that way. Alright then, you have any idea where Gato may have gone?" "Yes, there is this one place. It had a large stone board," Zabuza said after giving it some thought. He shouted, "A portal. Nero, you done over there?" He shouted back, "Yeah, I'm done here." He turns to Zabuza and says, "Come on, we're going after Gato. Can you take us there?" He remarked, "With pleasure," as Haku removed the former blonde. Virgil and Dante, the blue-clad devil, remarked, "He runs pretty quick for a little man." "No kidding, you think he's a demon like the ones at the club?" He remarked, "Maybe, or he's serving another." "That better not be what I think it is," Virgil said, glancing at the markings surrounding the large stone wall at the edge of the village, as they accelerated and caught up to Gato. Dante saw that the villagers were looking at them, wondering if the two would assist them in defeating Gato. At that point, Naruto, Nero, Zabuza, and Haku arrived on the scene. "I knew it, it's a portal. Guys, get everyone out of here, I'll deal with it," the three devils said, nodding to their younger sibling before taking off. "Oigaki." Naruto turned to Zabuza, saying, "Good luck." As he leapt away, Haku gave Naruto a final look before trailing Zabuza. "Now where were we?" he asked, aiming Kurama at Gato. "Back off, or else I'll open the doorway and unleash whatever demon awaits on the other side," warned Gato. "I don't think so," Kurama said, glowing red as he fired a charged round. Gato narrowly avoided it and opened the gate. "The hell, didn't we kill this thing already?" A familiar toad demon with a blue Rusalka jumped out of a portal that opened through the stone in a violet flash, Naruto thought when Gato attempted to flee but was stopped by a blue barrier. Naruto turned to face the terrified man hiding behind the stone and recalled what Dagon had said at the lake. "Don't think this is over, there are more of us." "Wonderful," Naruto thought. "Ew, just as nasty as the last one. Cut me some slack, man, not that big on toads," Naruto said. Leaping away to avoid the slime the demon was chucking as it roared and a blizzard swept through the village. "Fool! You think I care what you say?" it roared once more. "Skachia! We don't finish this quickly, it's gonna scar me for life," Naruto said, wiping his pants. It screamed, "Grr! I will crush you." Placing a hand on Alistair and maintaining his aim with Kurama, Naruto grinned and said, "Well then, come at me, bro." Play Frozen Frog's Devil May Cry 4 OST. Naruto started shooting at Biel, causing it to tremble as icicles sprang from its back and began to rain down. Alistair charged massive amounts of electricity and glowed violet as he dodged the falling ice. "Drive!" Naruto slashed, sending a violet shockwave in Bale's direction after taking the blow. The demon roared and lowered its head, ready to leap at the silver-haired devil. Naruto saw this and put his weapons away, open-mouthed and about to swallow. Biel leapt at Naruto. Naruto used his devil bringer to punch Biel down, shattering the ground beneath it. After leaping over the toad demon and grabbing its tail, Naruto picked it up, slammed it down once more, and threw it at a house. When Naruto pulled out Kurama, the kanji changed to 6 and transformed into an XM25 grenade launcher glowing red. Naruto fired 12 rounds into the house, causing it to explode in flames. He watched intently as Biel slowly rose and shook its head, growling and inflating its throat to glow violet like the last time. He roared, turning the area completely black. Naruto scowled and turned Kurama back to normal as the Rusalka descended. After firing at one that infuriatingly continued to move and getting struck by the other from the right, he skidded across the floor and shot the sirens with charged rounds. Naruto turned around a bit too late and was swallowed when Beal unexpectedly leapt out from behind him. Beal started to happily munch on his prey before feeling a sting. Naruto leapt out of the dying demon with the SMAW launcher while he roared in agony as his back was blown out from the inside as he whipped the slime off his coat and pants. He reversed Kurama back and holstered it after the barrier broke. He stopped when he heard more roars and turned around to see 5 more toad demons. As Dante and the others fell, Naruto said, "Damn, he wasn't kidding. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet." Whistle. "Damn, look at 'em all," Dante said, as the demons started crashing into houses. "Well, let's test this sucker out," he said, removing Pandora. The demons felt the bullets pierce their skin as he set it on the ground and transformed it into a portable Gatling gun. They then turned to face Dante, who grinned as Pandora changed into a 3 bazooka. He picked it up and held it over his head. He smiled naively and squeezed the trigger, sending the demons flying into the air along with the explosion. The weapon changed into a 3-sided boomerang shuriken and was thrown, slicing the toads in midair as it twisted around. Dante smirks and presses the levers to launch the missiles, destroying the demons as Pandora undergoes one last metamorphosis into a mobile missile battery. Dante merely closed Pandora with his foot and exhaled with relief as it transformed back into its box form and opened, drawing everyone's attention. The song's conclusion. By now, Zabuza and Haku were stunned by the devastation the box weapon had caused. "Well guys, time to vote who destroys the Hell Gate," Naruto said before anyone could respond. Virgil approached, used Judgment Cut, and sliced the gate in 3 equal parts, sending it crashing to the ground. "Gato." Naruto turned to face the gate, or more precisely, the trembling short man. People were talking among themselves about what they had seen from a distance away from the now demolished gate. They witnessed a big toad demon leap out of the stone gate, followed by 5 more that were destroyed right away. When they noticed Naruto approaching them while dragging Gato in one hand and holding Kurama in the other, their conversation was cut short. "Look at them, Gato. You have taken the lives and welfare of every single person here," Naruto said, when they saw that he was now missing a leg. "You've gone as far as using a hostage to save your own skin, and had unleashed high-ranking demons among the village. For your crimes," he points Kurama at Gato's head, "we sentence you to death." In a panic, Gato said, "Wai." Bang. Time slowed as Gato's now dead body hit the ground, and the sound of a gunshot reverberated throughout the tiny village. Gato's oppression had finally come to an end. As the villagers stood with wide eyes and cheered, a few started to cry happy tears. 2 weeks had passed since Gato's death, and news of the demon slayers was spreading like wildfire. Dante was considering opening another store, but he wasn't sure where to put it. To the astonishment of both Naruto and Nero, the residents of Wave viewed them and their other 2 siblings as heroes and couldn't care less about their demonic ancestry. Being the non-socialist that he is, Virgil avoided conversation, but to his dismay, his looks and mannerisms just so happened to draw in the majority of the female population. After nearly a month, the bridge was finished and Team 7 was prepared to return. In the interim, Naruto had forgiven his ex-sister for her behavior and consented to accompany her and her team back to Konoha for just 1 week before departing once more. Since Naruto was now a demon, the council would probably call for his death as soon as they learned of it, and his parents would probably be devastated. Naruko didn't want to see her brother go after all the effort she had put into persuading him, and Kakashi couldn't see any way to stop him from doing so. After Sasuke made several unsuccessful attempts to obtain the weapons he was entitled to, Virgil's threat caused the Sharingan user to permanently retreat. Sakura managed to force herself to at least cope with her fear of the 4. They are now standing close to the completed bridge, with Naruto standing next to his sister and her group and his brothers standing by Zabuza and Haku. Their role is to assist in putting an end to the civil war. "Do you really have to go, Aniki?" Inari asked the teary-eyed boy as he ran up to embrace the black-clad teenager. As the villagers were saying their goodbyes, Naruto returned the hug, ruffling the child's hair and pouting. "Yeah, I'll be back in a few days to visit before I head to Kiri," he said. The girl had developed a serious crush on the silver-haired teen since Gato's execution, and she had been able to get quite close to the black-clad devil when the blonde approached him. Haku blushed. Naruto was extremely envious since most people who saw them together would frequently assume they were a couple. It goes without saying that Zabuza and Dante blushed to the color of cherry jello after hearing the local proverbs and giving their approval in front of a sizable crowd. "Now remember, you 3, no fighting, or so help me I will do to you what Trish did to Dante on Christmas," he said, giving her a hug and a gripped high five before turning to face his siblings. "Good then, I will see you guys in a few days," he said, turning to leave with Team 7 while Dante, Virgil, and Nero followed Zabuza and Haku towards Kiri. Haku-chan, he said huskily in her ear, making her groan a little while annoying Naruko. Dazuna asked the populace, "So, what should we name the bridge?" Inari approached and said, pumping his fist, "How about the Four Devils Bridge?" Many of the villagers agreed, and Tazuna declared, "Then it's settled. The bridge shall be known as the Four Devils Bridge." Everyone cheered. The Konoha Road. Naruto was walking just ahead of everyone else because he was eager to end the situation. The former blonde had been approached by Naruto and even Kakashi. He spoke briefly but dismissed any inquiries about his personal life. Sasuke just glared daggers at the silver-haired devil. He needed the weapons to kill his brother. Why couldn't the demon understand that Sakura had tried to get the Uchiha to date her but was shut down as he seemed more interested in what the devil was carrying? "How long till we get there?" he asked. "Not long," said Kakashi. Naruko asked her ex-twin, Ni-san, "What do you plan to do when we get there?" "Just gonna visit some friends then lay low for the week," Sasuke said, as if anyone would be stupid enough to befriend a demon. "I could say the same about you Uchiha. As far as what the Kyuubi told me, the Sharingan was a mutated from the Byakugan, which was given to the Hyuga by a demon itself. All in all, you're no different than me," he said to everyone in the room. "The Kyuubi," Sakura stammered. Naruto continued at his own pace, saying, "It's funny actually, I've had the soul since birth, and with its soul came over years of knowledge. It's to say that I know more about the Sharingan than the Uchiha do." "Wow, then that means you must know at least hundreds of jutsu," Naruto said, placing a finger thoughtfully on her lower lip. Kakashi had to concur. "Not really," he uttered, blending the two. "While he did offer to train me, I refused and took up a different offer." "And what would that be?" The others stared in confusion as Naruto simply shook his head and said, "That's something I'm going to be keeping to myself." Naruto gazed at his pistol, which had a menacing aura that was all too similar to the one she had sealed inside of her. "West Gates of Konoha. Well, you four came back sooner than expected, but who's he?" In an attempt to convince them, Naruto said, "Azumo, Katetsu. He's just a traveler wanting to stay for a few days." The two Chunin stared at the silver-haired devil, thinking, weird clothes for a traveler, and what's up with the Zanbato? "Well, I guess we could let him in. We will have to inform the Hokage and have someone look after him during his stay," Azumo said, while Naruto simply gave the two irritated glance. "Sorry, but travelers don't usually carry weapons, especially Zanbato. It's just a precaution." With a glare that caused the two to recoil, Naruto said, "So you can kill me if I'm considered a threat?" "Whatever," he said, turning away. As Azumo Shunshin approached the Hokage Tower, Katetsu remarked, Right. Anyway, show us your passports and you're good to go." Team 7 presented their ID to them and passports. Katetsu examined them before granting them entry as he led his team to the tower. Kakashi said, "He'll be fine. Come, we gotta give our report to Hokage-sama." It wasn't until then that Sasuke realized Naruto's path led directly to the Uchiha compound. "Well, I'm heading out, don't wait up," Naruto said before leaving Team 7 to stare at the silver-haired devil's retreating form. Tower of Cage. Minato Namikaze sat by his desk reading reports of all recent missions while his Cage Bunshins worked on paperwork. He and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, had not given up on finding their missing son, despite the fact that even the man's sensei Jiraiya had told him it was pointless after 5 years. Nothing had surfaced in his spy network, and his only conclusion was that either a village had taken him and was hiding him, or he was dead. Minato sighed as he finished reading the reports, but Kushina entered with another stack. Both parents didn't think that was true and had carried on with their search. "Still no sign of him?" he inquired, to which his wife replied negatively. She inquired, "What word from the spies?" Minato had dispatched the best of the best to every village in the hopes of locating their son. "Nothing," he said as Azumo materialized in a leaf swirl. "Hokage-sama." He bowed with a tilt of his head. Minato questioned, "Azumo, shouldn't you be watching over the West Gate?" The blonde man sat up straight and said, "Yes, but this is important." "Okay, do tell." "Team 7 has returned from their mission to Wave," Minato said to his wife, who concurred, "Already? That's awful fast, don't you think?" This piqued their curiosity. "You see, there was a 5th member with them," he said. "He claims to be a traveler, but, with him carrying a Zanbato, I hardly doubt he's here for sightseeing." Minato glanced at Kushina, who nodded. "Very well, Kushina will watch over this man. I'm sure Kakashi will be here with his team. I'll see what I can get from them," he replied. "All right, I'll see you and Naruto later," Kushina said, kissing the blonde and leaving. He said, "If that is all, Azumo." "Dismissed." Azumo replied, "Hi, Hokage-sama," before vanishing into a whirlwind of leaves. 30 minutes later. You four are here rather early, Minato said as Team 7 entered the office. Well, doesn't matter, Kakashi report, said the man. Hi, sensei. Kakashi continued to explain everything that had happened while doing his best to conceal Naruto's identity. He covered the encounter with the assaults, the lake battle between the three devils and the Toad Demon, the defeat of the tyrant Gato, meeting the A-class hunter Nin Zabuza and his accomplice Haku, and how they were on their way to Kiri to join the rebellion. Though I find the whole report intriguing, Kakashi, you should have taken precaution and sent for reinforcements. Your team isn't ready to take down demons even if they are lesser, Minato said, before he leaned on his chair. Now, I believe Izumo said something about another member visiting here. He asked. Minato was fascinated by the three demon slayers and their weapons, but that would be for another time. Naruto added, yeah dad, he's one of the demon slayers we told you about. I see. Well, your mother agreed to be the one to watch over him. How long is he planning on staying? Replied Minato. Kakashi and Naruto grew a bit nervous. This meant that there was a chance of discovering Naruto's identity. Only a week, she said. Minato narrowed his eyes. There was something they weren't telling him. He sighed. Very well. He brought out several bills of Ryo, for surviving an encounter with both an A-class missing nin and demons. I present you all with S-rank pay. He said, handing over the large quantities of money. Now, dismissed. And Naruto, I'll see you at home. She smiled at him and turned to walk away with her team. He asked himself, what are you four hiding? The Uchiha compound. The silver-haired devil walked up to the large compound and knocked on the door several times. Moment later, a black-haired beauty opened the door. Can I help you? The woman asked. Yeah, is Satsuki Uchiha here? He asked. The Uchiha matriarch nodded. Satsuki, come down here, there's a young man out here who wants to speak with you. Makoto called out, which she got a reply. If it's for a date, then I'm not interested. She called out, making the devil sweat drop. Makoto nodded and went inside after saying, I just want to speak with her. A little while later, a younger girl emerged. She appeared to be 14 years old, but she already had killer C-cups. Her hair and eyes were raven black, just like all Uchihas, and they were tied in a small ponytail with X-cross chopsticks. She had a hatai tied to her arm and a kunai shuriken holster strapped to her leg while wearing a black sweater and pants. She said, well, what do you want? Satsuki narrowed her eyes and cautiously followed him as he walked away, saying, I think it's best we speak in a more secluded area. As they paused, she noticed a street lined with sakura trees, which reminded her of her early years. She recalled meeting a blonde boy with whisker lines on his cheeks, becoming best friends with him, and developing a crush on him. She also recalled the note he had left her before he vanished. A flashback when Satsuki heard a knock on her window while reading a book about Kaiden Jutsu. She opened it to reveal Naruto injured. Naruto-kun, what happened? She exclaimed as she rushed into her bathroom, opened her cabinet, and took out some bandages and healing salve. He winced as his friend applied ointment to his stab wound. She gave him a dejected look before bandaging him. It happened again, he said. Satsuki-chan, he said, causing the girl to blush at the suffix. Hi? She asked. I'm leaving tonight, he said, causing her to gasp. But why? She asked, not wanting to lose her best friend. You know why, Satsuki-chan. You know why I can't stay here, he said. Avoiding eye contact, he reached into his pocket and produced a note, saying, I wrote this for you. Don't read it until after midnight. By then I should be gone, he said, stumbling to his feet. I promise, Satsuki-chan. I won't forget you. Before climbing out the window and leaving, Satsuki opened her window at midnight and read the note, but she just stared at it, fighting the urge to cry. To Satsuki-chan, you, your mother, your brother, even old man Tucci and Ayame, have done so much for me that I will never be able to repay you. Since bonds never really fade, I will always cherish the memories we shared and know that we will cross paths again in the future. Satsuki's hands were shaking and tears were welling up at the corners of her eyes, so she stopped reading. I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye, love. Naruto, Makoto, and Itachi entered, wondering what was wrong with their sister or daughter, and the Uchiha sobbed as she held the note to her chest. She simply sobbed into her mother's arms without ever responding. The flashback has ended as the silver-haired teenager stopped in the middle of the road. Satsuki snapped back to reality. It's beautiful, isn't it? He asked, observing the sakura petals flying in the wind. I always knew we'd see each other again, though I think I took my sweet time, don't you think? He said. The Uchiha just stared at the devil in bewilderment, but she was certain she had seen her childhood friend. He looked up into a tree and scowled a little when he noticed red hair. Who are you? She asked. I can't say, there are always ears listening. Ya know. I've got to go now, but we'll see each other again after all. Bonds never truly break. he whispered as he turned to face the girl and approached her. Satsuki's eyes widened as the teen with silver hair passed her. "Naruto-kun?" she whispered as she slowly turned her head, and the devil turned to face her and gave her a wink before leaving a single tear dropped from the Uchiha's eyes as she gazed at the white-haired devil. Ground 36 for training. Naruto was aware that someone was pursuing him as he crossed the wide-open forest, but he could only speculate as to who it might be. He yelled, "Okay, this is starting to piss me off, show yourself." But no one emerged. Naruto then pulled out Kurama and knocked the trees over with a demonic round. A red blur shot out and landed a few feet away from him. Naruto glared at the woman before him. Why'd he send her of all people? He imagined himself holding onto his handgun. "If you're going to be stalking me, then do a better job," he said, unsheathing her katana and pointing it at the devil. Kushina scowled and remarked, "It was for precautions. The fact that you actually brought me out of hiding proves you're skilled. I know you're not here for sightseeing, so I'm going to have to ask you to state your business." He holstered Kurama, pulled out Alistair, and charged violet electricity, saying, "You have no idea what you're up against." When the teenager suddenly materialized in front of Kushina, she went wide-eyed. "Stinger!" He stabbed forward, and the red-haired woman ducked but was slashed in the back by the massive amount of lightning that was created. Each blow felt like a full power punch from Tsunade as Naruto materialized in front of her and began swinging his blade. Kushina struggled to block the incoming swings after managing to leap back and put some distance between them. Kushina sank her blade into the ground and charged her palms with chakra. Naruto stood motionless as he watched his former mother use her own jutsu on him as she reached forward and threw out several chains as the chains encircled him. Naruto removed his left arm, pulled on the chains, and threw Kushina skyward before forcefully slamming her to the ground. A red spider web barrier encircled the area as Naruto approached her with Alistair drawn after the woman coughed out blood as she slowly crawled out of the tiny crater. "Kuso!" he growled, and Kushina looked up at him in confusion as the entire area darkened. 5 red-armored creatures with light blue eyes, yellow claws that resembled stingers, and a cape of black mist, Mephistos, emerged from the shadows. As he charged ahead, he told Kushina, "Better stay back." The red-haired woman could only stare as the silver-haired teen rushed towards the floating demons. The Mephistos swirled around the devil as their claws shined bright before shooting out like a scorpion stinger when the kanji changed to 5 and transformed into an ACR-68 assault rifle. Naruto brought out Kurama while dodging the stingers and laying Alistair on his back. Kushina watched in wonder as the weapon's barrel flashed and the almost visible bullets ripped through the demon's mist cloak as he aimed and released the yokai-charged bullets. After Naruto enhanced his accuracy and activated the laser sight on Kurama, 3 cloaks scattered in the bodies, which were revealed to be red-armored scorpion demons, dropped. After air hiking in their direction, Naruto grabbed one of their stingers and shot one of them with a volley of bullets before hurling the corpse at the other 2. Kurama changed into an XM-25 grenade launcher, and the kanji shifted to 6. He jumped up and fired another round, setting their cloaks on fire as the incendiary rounds melted through their armor like butter on toast. He then turned to face the other 2, who circled around him and fired their stingers. The kanji shifted back to 1 and holstered his pistol. Naruto grabbed the Mephisto's tail as it fell and slammed it into the other repeatedly until their bodies were nothing but crushed heap, which he tossed aside when the barrier broke. Naruto turned to face Kushina, who merely looked at him in amazement before realizing that she wouldn't have a chance with a weapon like those. As Naruto turned to face the massive demonic signature that was approaching from the north, Kushina saw the thin whisker marks on his face and gasped. "Sochi?" she whispered as Naruto sprinted in the direction of the signature, wincing at the injuries she had sustained. Kushina pushed herself to her feet and followed her long-lost son. Tower of Cage. As Minato felt the demonic signature, he carried on going over the reports and signing documents as they fell. He shouted, "Anbu! Hi, Hokage-sama?" They said, "Set the village on lockdown and get everyone to safety," he said, pointing to 2 of the Anbu. "The rest of you get every able shinobi here quickly." "Hi!" they exclaimed, vanishing in a flurry of leaves. The Uchiha compound. The only survivors of the Uchiha massacre, Sasuke, Mikoto, and Satsuki, were sitting in the living quarters discussing his mission to Wave when the demonic energy was released. Mikoto said, "Stay here you two," as she put on her Anbu gear and made her way to the tower. Sasuke and Satsuki merely exchanged glances before leaving as well. Ramen, Ikaraku, Naruto, Kakashi, and Iruka ate their respected bowls as they told each the Chunin about their mission to Wave before they could say anything else. The demonic energy being released shook Tucci and Ayame, who were also enjoying the story and were ecstatic to learn that Naruto was still alive and in the village. "What is that?" inquired Naruto as he paid for the meals and made his way to the signature. Kakashi said, I don't know, but if I knew any better, then Naruto's probably at the center of it. Come on, we've got to help out any way we can. 20 minutes later, Cage Tower. The following Jonin and clan heads were wondering the same thing. Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai, Asuma, Anko, Yugo, Hayate, Genma, Sume, Hana, Shibi, Choza, Inoichi, Makoto, Shikaku, and even Naruto Heishi asked, Minato, what's going on? As you all know, an enormous demonic signature was detected north of here and is growing stronger. I've called you all here to find it and eliminate it before it reaches maximum levels, he said. Kakashi said, what about you, sensei? I'll be going as well. Naruto, you stay here. The rest of you move out. He ordered, and with that everyone shunshined away. Naruto frowned and jumped out the window, heading out as well. Unidentified region. As she tried to catch up to her son, Kushina tree hopped. To her surprise, he was outpacing all the humans she had ever seen, and she could sense it. Naruto then left the forest and arrived at an abandoned village. He was shocked to see the Hell Gate atop a cliff that was starting to open. As Kushina emerged from the forest, a blue spider web barrier encircled the entire village. Naruto! Exclaimed Kushina as she ran up and slammed her fist against the barrier. The devil then turned to face the Hell Gate. The gate developed a big crack. A hole was melted through it by molten magma, and a huge centaur demon that resembled a lion blasted out of it, causing the ground to tremble as it landed a few feet from Naruto. Kushina became increasingly concerned for her birth child as she gasped at what she saw. The lion centaur clutched its massive blade before roaring demonically and igniting the nearby building. Naruto narrowed his eyes as the demon approached him without noticing the silver-haired devil and waved his hand in front of him as though attempting to ward off an unpleasant odor. The demon said, "Ah, the human world, it's been a while." As Naruto approached it, despite Kushina's cries to stop, to her shock the two walked right past each other, not saying a word. That is until Naruto drew Alistair. Streak. He shouts as he spins with a hard swing, instantly dousing the flames of the surrounding buildings as well as the ones on the demon's back. The lion centaur turned to face the silver-haired devil and said, "How curious." Naruto hefted his weapon on his shoulder and wiped his hand on his coat. "Fire's bad for the complexion. I burn easily, never tan," he said. The demon snarled at him and told him that there was no such human as the likes of you when I came to this world 2,000 years ago. "Want to make it another 2,000? Naruto asked, challenging it. The demon became enraged and yelled, "Silence!" as it raised its blade to stab. Kushina yelled, "Naruto, move now." But Naruto just stood there while the demon struck. The demon stumbled as Naruto used Alistair to block the shockwave created by the blade meeting blade. The blade's tip was extremely hot from pushing the larger sword away. The lion centaur growled in annoyance, "Feudal pest. You will suffer the wrath of Burial. I, the conqueror of the fire hell." The demon roared, igniting the flames on his body as well as on the buildings once again. Kushina could only watch as Naruto cracked his neck and lightning sparked everywhere in Alistair. Sochi. Play sworn through swords. DMC4 Ost. Naruto leapt high and slashed away at the demon's upper torso as Burial swung his sword at the devil, demolishing any nearby houses within range. The lightning flashed through its body, and it winced in agony. When Burial became irritated and swung his free arm at the devil, Naruto swiftly raised Alistair, causing him to crash through a house as the arm struck his weapon. With two FMG9s, he crashed through the roof and unleashed his demonic weapons. Burial used his free hand to shield his face before crouching back and lunging forward, bringing his blade down and collapsing the entire house. Naruto's Devil Bringer prevented the blade from crashing into him while he was directly beneath it. He pushed it back, causing the massive lion centaur to stumble. When Kurama fired the rocket, Burial lost control of his sword and fell to the ground. Kurama's kanji changed to 9 and transformed into SMAW launcher. As Burial started to get up, Naruto transformed Kurama back to normal, summoned Alistair, and started to charge large amounts of electricity. Although Kushina had witnessed her son defeat Mephistos, this was too much to bear as she watched him battle a demon at least 15 times his size. It was difficult to determine who was winning because both were fighting hard. Alistair was now glowing dark violet and causing sparks of electricity to fly throughout the blade after Naruto had completed charging the lightning. Naruto hurried away as the earth beneath him erupted in a fiery conflagration as Burial sneered and smashed a flaming fist into the ground. As Naruto charged with his blade, Burial reached for his own. With a swing, Naruto overturned the lion centaur's sword and yelled, "Drive!" His broadsword slash sent a visible shockwave that sent Burial crashing to the ground. As its body started to heat up, Naruto leapt back with a loud roar. Burial sent his own shockwave that destroyed the houses in the area. Round trip. Naruto hurled Alistair at the fire demon, which embedded itself in its forehead after spinning like a saw blade holding on as he swung his sword in an attempt to pry the devil off. The white-haired devil leapt up on the demon's blade and ran upwards towards its forehead. "Let's see how you like this," Naruto exclaimed as 100,000 volts ignited as he leapt once more and landed on Burial's head, holding both Alistair and one of his horns. With a roar of agony, Burial reached up, seized the silver-haired devil, and hurled him forcefully. The whiskered devil grabbed Alistair as he stood up after Naruto crashed onto the ground and rolled over several times before stopping in front of his mother. Alistair turned to face his mother, who was staring at his left arm, which was glowing blue beneath his coat. He turned to face Burial as the lion centaur prepared to leap. A moment later, it leapt forward, his sword poised to split the earth. Naruto air hiked over his head and used a large demonic spectral blue arm to grab hold of its face with his hands still on his face. Naruto flipped the demon over and raised it off the ground before slamming it into multiple houses still in shock from the attack. Burial got to his feet and said, "Your arm, you are not human," as he watched his arm glow beneath his coat. "Not human? What is that demon talking about?" Kushina simply gazed at what had just happened, she asked herself. Naruto looked at his arm and remarked, "Don't ask, damn thing drives me crazy though." "You were just like he was," the demon growled when he said, "He? You referring to my father?" "Father? You, the son of Sparda, so you do know him." Burial struggled to remove the demon's sword from the whiskered devil as Naruto scowled and snatched it up with his devil buster. "I'm going to enjoy tearing you apart," he roared as he charged forward. "Dance macabre." Naruto screamed as he slashed at the demon's torso after sinking the blade next to him and running up it as he had done previously. He charged massive amounts of electricity through Alistair before jumping to the demon's face. Burial roared as his fire finally went out, causing him to fall a little. Sensing his opportunity, Naruto leapt once more and used his devil bringer to grab the demon's face and slam him down, leaving a small crater. "I'm not done yet." Naruto punched the demon away after uppercutting him, sending him flying a few feet into the air, and then he crashed into the cliffside, landing on his knees. The lion centaur said, "To be defeated by both father and child, how shameful." Naruto was gasping for air. "You can stay here and die, or you can walk your ugly ass back through that gate, it's your call, man," he said. Burial growled at the devil, "I have waited too long to finally walk the plains of the human world. Your father Sparda forced me to retreat. I will not do so again." The demon roared before he burst into flames in the shape of his head and fleeing in Naruto's direction. "Sochi!" Naruto heard his birth mother yell. Naruto simply pulled out Kurama and fired a round into the flaming head, causing it to scatter into a few sparks. As the barrier surrounding the area cracked and vanished, Naruto sighed and holstered his weapon, saying, "Well, that's a disappointment. I was hoping for a little more than just a few sparks." The song's conclusion. As Kushina was about to run to her son, she collapsed to her knees and coughed up blood. Naruto turned to face the fallen woman, who appeared to have been more injured by the sky drop than he had initially believed. "Crush it in your hands, you'll feel slightly better," he said as he made his way to the glowing red orb floating in the middle of the village. He sighed and reached into his coat to retrieve a small green star, which he threw to Kushina. Kushina looked at the glowing star before turning to face her son. Kushina felt refreshed after slowly reaching for and crushing the vital star. She was still in pain, but not as much as before. "Sochi," she yelled, "I'm not your son anymore, not by blood anyway," he replied. "Naruto, if this is about how we favored Naruto, please, just give us a chance," she begged. Naruto paused to reflect. His mother Eva had always believed in second chances and had advised him to forgive his birth parents at the time. He reluctantly refused to do so, but now what should he do? Kushina looked perplexed and said, "You want another chance? Fine then. I will forgive you if you can accept me and my brothers for who we are, not for what we are." Naruto turned away and said, "When I was leaving the village, I was beaten, stoned, clubbed, and stabbed," which caused his birth mother to gasp and put her hands to her mouth. "I managed to set foot a few miles away from there, and shortly after they were attacked and killed by lesser demons known as scarecrows, and I was helpless and I knew I was going to die. That's when he saved me." "Who?" inquired Kushina. "My father, Sparda," he said. "He made a deal with me in which I accepted. The deal was that he would transfer his blood into me, cutting all bonds I had with my family," he said, looking the red-haired woman as she looked down sadly. "In return I would become his son and he would take me away from the elemental nations," he said. "So, I'm no longer your mother then?" she said as tears escaped her eyes. Kushina snapped her head in his direction, tears streaming down her cheeks as he said, "Not necessarily, we may not be related by blood anymore, but you are still my birth parent and therefore my mother as well." Between sobs, she said, "Why, you said you'd forgive me if I accept you. What do you mean by that?" Naruto sighed and took the glove off his left hand, revealing his devil bringer in full view. He said, "I became one of the strongest demons from the netherworld, a devil, when my father transferred his blood into me," leaving Kushina speechless. "My father was a devil as well as my 3 brothers Dante, Virgil, and Nero. My mother was human named Eva, and like any family they treated me like their own even if I wasn't born from the family," he continued to face Kushina. "So that's why I ask you, are you willing to accept me and my sibling regardless of what we are?" asked him. Dynamic entry. The silver-haired devil said reflexively as he caught an incoming kick and threw the attacker away. Kushina looked down, unsure of what to think. Naruto then turned to face the floating soul and was ready to reach out with his devil bringer. The green spandex-wearing man saw Naruto's arm and said, "Amazing, young man. You are the first to ever stop my kick. May I have your na?" "Oh, so it was you who caused the disturbance. For the safety of our village you must be eliminated," he said. Assuming stance, Naruto simply stared at the bowl-cut Jonin. As he did, more shinobi appeared. "Kushina, are you okay?" Minato asked, pleading. "Minato, don't hurt him." The blonde was perplexed, and the silver-haired teen's glowing blue arm made it obvious that he was a demon. "Kushina, what are you talking about?" he asked, turning to face the devil, who was standing motionless. "What's up with your eyebrows?" Naruto asked, causing everyone to present their face vault, while the clan heads and the Jonin assumed stance and waited for the demon to attack. "Crap, they got here first," Naruto muttered as Satsuki, Sasuke, Kakashi, and Naruto landed on a tree. Before leaving the group, Naruto scratched the back of his head. The group then gradually relaxed and exchanged puzzled glances with one another. The silver-haired teen reached out and grasped the demon's soul with his devil bringer. In a red flash, a hellish-like backpack appeared on his right shoulder. The base was shaped like streamlined skull with large red glowing eyes. It also had twin metallic projections from the side that resembled folded wings. Naruto looked up at the Hellgate and said, "Mujin Tsurugi. Rushifru, inexhaustible sword. Lucifer," as a black mist enveloped the new weapon. He then flew. Everyone watched as Naruto hovered in midair. "First I whip it out," he said, extracting red spectral blades from the wings. "Then I thrust it in, with great force." He started firing the weapons. Every angle, it penetrates, until, with great strength, he pulled out 6 blades and fired them. I ram it in. He pulled out a final blade and fired it in the center. The blades that struck the Hellgate resembled a large heart. In the end, we're all satisfied. He clapped his hands, causing the blades to explode and the gate to fall, leaving only the heart intact. "And you were set free," he said, throwing the rose at the last blade, causing it to explode and break the heart in half. The only person clapping so far was Anko, and Guy was crying as he said how beautiful that was. By the end, almost everyone was staring in shock, and almost every woman in the room blushed at the hidden meaning behind his words. Before being absorbed into Naruto's devil bringer, Lucifer's wings folded once more. Naruto then turned back to face the crowd and proceeded. Followed by Kushina, she surprised everyone by bringing him into an embrace when they were only a few inches apart. "I don't care what you are, you're still my Sochi," she whispered, and Naruto, for the first time in a long time, grinned and gave her a pat in return when Minato asked, Kushina-heim, who's this exactly?" Kushina laughed and replied, "Don't you recognize your son when you see him?" Everyone shouted, "N-A-N-I." Naruto and Kakashi sighed with relief up in the tree, and Satsuki grinned as she watched her childhood friend's parents embrace him. Sasuke was preoccupied with examining the demon's arm, which had absorbed the recently acquired weapon. He snarled at the significantly diminished opportunity to obtain one of the all-powerful weapons. Compound Namikaze. Naruto took center stage and started to explain things in front of his former family, clan leaders, and a number of Jonin. The village would occasionally beat him. He would meet his new father and turn into the devil. He would release the Kyuubi. Wait, what? Naruto. See, could you repeat that? I don't think we heard you correctly, Minato stuttered. Don't take it the wrong way. I trust the Biju with my own heart and soul, Naruto stated. Everyone asked the same question, but why would you release it? Okay, fine, I'll explain. It happened during a family feud. My older brother Virgil was manipulated into opening the doorway to the netherworld. A flashback. Naruto watched a massive tower emerge from below while perched atop a nearby dilapidated structure. He was aware that demons always seem to be at the center of situations like this. The ex-blonde leapt from the roof and ran in the direction of the tower. He heard gunfire coming from inside as he entered and rushed forward to see a familiar face shooting at a chained, ice-armored dog with a two-barreled revolver. It appeared to have had something blown off, possibly a head, as evidenced by the two stumps on the side of its neck. The former three-headed dog flew back and hit the ice wall with a final shot. The dog stood up trembling and said, "You are not human, are you?" The teen with the white hair said, "Figure that out on your own? Regardless, you have proven your strength. I acknowledge your abilities. Take my soul and go forth. You have my blessing," the dog demon said, shaking its head before his body exploded, leaving only a glowing blue orb floating in the direction of the devil. After Nero grabbed the orb, it changed into a tripartite nunchaku. The three of them resembled icy blue bones that were joined by chains. "Whistle," Nero said. That looked fun, as he turned to face his younger brother. He said, "Naruto, what are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood when the tower appeared," he replied. They turned to face their older sibling, who was dressed in red, and said, "Oh, am I too late for the party?" "Dante?" he asked after Nero showed him his new devil arm. "Ah yup, what I miss?" He shocked the two by asking, "So, anyone got an idea on what Virgil's up to?" "Virgil's here," he exclaimed. "Yeah, his demons trashed up my shop and stepped on my pizza," causing Naruto and Nero to perspire. A red motorcycle crashed through before anyone could speak, and they turned as soon as they heard a revving motor. Naruto made eye contact with the young black-haired woman riding it as he narrowly avoided to the right after Dante and Nero leapt out of the way. She was dressed like a schoolgirl, with dark red combat boots, two holstered SMGs on her lower back, a holstered gun on her leg, and a bayoneted rocket launcher on her back. But her eyes, one green, the other brown, were what drew Naruto's attention the most. He jumped back, blushing a little. Dante shot back an aimed rocket in response to the question. "Whoa, lady, what's the hurry? Didn't you get an invitation?" The red-clad devil jumped on and surfed through the air before jumping off and letting the rocket hit the roof. He remarked, "Haha, that was fun." The woman jumped into the hole created, revved her engine, and drove away. Dante remarked, "This just keeps getting better and better," before leading Naruto and Nero into the next room. After splitting up to search the rest of the tower, Naruto went through a number of rooms with Dante and Nero. He entered a room where the glowing blue barrier locked him in. The former blonde turned to face the room that had multiple large holes in it. "Wonder what made these?" he asked himself, but he didn't get an answer until a gigantic demon that resembled a tapeworm emerged from one of the holes and began to fly around. Play the Gigapede battle theme from Devil May Cry 3's Ost. Before lightning engulfed the large centipede and hurled balls of light violet electricity at the whiskered devil, he remarked, "That's a big bug." Naruto leapt aside and charged ahead, grabbing the bug by the jaw and repeatedly striking it with his devil bringer. Naruto grunted as lightning sped through his body, and he let go and fell as the big centipede simply shook the slight pain before electrocuting its body again. The former blonde glanced around as he watched the centipede crawl into a hole, then turned to face the bug's enormous flytrap jaws before the bug slammed his body to the ground. Naruto screamed in agony as the fangs bit down on the devil and released more lightning. The silver-haired devil gritted his teeth, rolled over, and leapt away as a trail of lightning bolts shot toward him from the demon's blue back legs. The Gigapede's tail swung as he leapt away, slamming him against a wall. Naruto slid down and slammed a blue ethereal fist into the bug's face before it could bite down on him again. He leapt away, dodging the lightning balls of the bug. "How in the hell am I supposed to kill this thing? This is getting me nowhere," he thought. "Naruto, can you hear me? Kurama?" The Biju said, "Kit, I can help you, but you're going to have to release me first." Naruto shot back, "And how exactly would that help? You've got no chakra, remember," before he leapt away from the bug's needle. "Baka, don't you remember your brother took that Inu demon's soul and turned it into a weapon? I can do the same," Kurama responded. Naruto yelled, "And you're sure of this?" He was aware that Kurama disliked being confined, but was he prepared to transform into a devil arm for his own sake? "Kid, out of all my previous Jinchuriki, you're the only one I've come to respect. Take my soul, and annihilate that poor excuse of a demon," Kurama said. Naruto nodded and dove into the depths of his mindscape, where he found a chained, ethereal nine-tailed Biju with a large dark blue flame surrounded by a slightly tattered bone-like orb with several broken red crystals inside its chest. An. Think, proud soul. The Biju nodded as he looked up at him, and Naruto followed suit before removing the tag from the chains. When Kurama's orb-like soul emerged from his chest back in the outside world, Naruto stiffened and the former blonde reached out to grab it. He saw his best friend transform into a black M1911 SS handgun with a red grip and kanji for one. When he turned to see the Gigapede charging at him, Naruto grasped his first devil arm and filled it with as much of his yokai as possible, causing it to glow a vivid crimson red. The former blonde aimed at the gaping mouth of the demon when it was close enough. Jackpot! He exclaimed prior to firing. A yokai bullet exploded, tearing through the insides of the bug before exploding into multiple flaming pieces, leaving a flaming twister in its wake. Song end. The flashback is over. The strongest Biju voluntarily became Naruto's personal weapon, and everyone stared in disbelief at the silver-haired devil. Naruto concluded his explanation while sipping his tea, saying, "Anyway, that's the gist of it." They all turned to Naruto and said, "So that was the deal you made with it," to which her brother nodded. "Since his chakra was sealed into you, he's been recovering it at a slow rate. It's been 5 years and he's only been able to recover up to 2 taels worth of chakra," he continued. Kushina inquired, "So he's weak at the moment?" Everyone turned pale and looked at the holstered weapon as he explained, "To you maybe, but you forget, Kurama's the strongest Biju for a reason. He doesn't need all 9 taels to eradicate a village." Surprising them, Naruto sighed, "Well, I hate to leave so soon, but I gotta go." Naruto said, But you promised you'd stay for a week." Minato and Kushina then took turns glaring at their son, and he could tell they wanted an explanation because they wanted to spend time with him and make amends. Naruto stood up and glanced out the window at the villagers. "You didn't think the yokai went unnoticed by every shinobi in this village. One of them is bound to report to the village elders. Look at them, they may not know who I am, but once they do, they'll begin to treat me like they did before, and now that I'm a demon, they won't stop until they make sure I'm dead. I'm sorry, but I can't stay here," he said. Kushina started to cry. Shikaku questioned, "Where will you go then?" "As of now, my 3 siblings are heading over to Kiri. We plan helping the rebellion. After that we can set up shop there," he said. As Naruto raised his DB, Minato was interrupted, saying, "I can send several Anbu squads too." Before making his way to the door, he reassured his father, saying, "Sorry, but we can handle ourselves." Before opening the door to reveal an Anbu who was ready to knock, he said, "Don't worry, we'll see each other again, you can count on that." The violet-haired Neko Anbu inquired, Is Hokage-sama in right now?" As he left, he said, "Yeah, go right in." As he consoled his sobbing wife, Minato said, "Yugo-san, is there something we can help you with?" She looked around at the clan heads and said, "The elders request your and everyone's presence." Alongside Naruto. As Naruto approached the gates while strolling through the streets, he heard Satsuki say, "Naruto," and turned to face her. He asked, "Satsuki-chan?" before she gave him a face slap. As he rubbed his now red and aching cheek, he glanced at his childhood friend bewildered. She said, "Teme, you left me alone for 5 years." Naruto could see that she was crying dryly. "Baka!" she screamed, repeatedly calling him dumb while hammering into his chest. Satsuki eventually calmed down and gave the whiskered teen a hug after the former blonde let go of her suppressed feelings. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. He said, "I'm sorry," and Satsuki just held on tighter. "It's okay, you came back, that's all that matters," she replied. He said feebly, About that, I'm actually leaving again," as Satsuki beat him into the ground and developed a tick mark. "Baka!" she exclaimed while kicking Naruto's fallen body. He replied, "I'm really sorry about this, Satsuki-chan, but right now my brothers need me." She halted her attack and gave him a look that demanded an explanation. Naruto had tried his best to explain his status, without drawing the attention of the passing villagers, but after a rather drawn-out explanation, the young Uchiha was left stunned and unable to speak. He concluded by saying, "Now do you see why I can't stay here?" Satsuki frowned slightly and folded her arms. She said, "Then I'm coming with you, Are you deaf?" "I said I'm coming with you," she asked again. "But, what about your family?" he inquired. They looked at Makoto and said, "Yes, what about your family?" "Ka-chan, she attempted to clarify. She said, "It's been too long, Naru-chan. Look how much you've grown. I hardly recognized you when you knocked on our door," which caused the former blonde to perspire. He said, Thanks." She made the two shudder as she asked sweetly, "Now Satsuki, what is this about leaving the village?" You see," she attempted to clarify, but Makoto approached her daughter and fixed her gaze. "Ka-chan, what are you doing?" she inquired. The girl blushed atomic red as she whispered in her ear, "Oh, I see. Does my little Satsuki-chan have a crush on Naru-chan?" Satsuki looked at her mother in shock as she said, "Well, if this is what you want, then there's no stopping you." She said, "Are you sure?" and got a nod. She said in a sweet voice, "Now Naru-chan, promise me that you'll protect my daughter. If you don't, I'll hunt you down and remove the thing that makes you a man." Naruto paled and nodded quickly. As the two headed to their compound, the former blonde nodded and said, "Now Satsuki, let's go pack. Naru-chan, wait here for us." Meanwhile, Kiri is several miles away as he, Virgil, Nero, Zabuza, and Haku sailed towards Kirigakure. Dante asked, a little bored, "How much longer till we get there?" Dante sighed and prepared to lay down as Zabuza explained, "Not much longer. The rebels' base is on the third island to the left." After an hour, they arrived at the island and were on their way to the base when Dante experienced a shiver. "Something wrong?" inquired Nero. The red-clad devil said, looking around wildly, "She's here, I sense it." They turned to see a long-haired, blonde woman dressed in black leather shortly after Dante was struck by a rather large rock. "Hey Trish," Virgil gave the woman a high five. Nero questioned, "What are you doing here? What does it look like?" "We came looking for you guys," she responded. "We?" they inquired. "Traveling to Wave Country?" They were making good progress, with Satsuki climbing into the trees and Naruto running with yokai's increased speed back in the village. Sasuke had resisted allowing his sister to leave because he believed someone would try to steal Sharingan's secrets, not because he loved her. After learning who she was leaving with, Makoto's explanation that everything would be alright only made him hate the former blonde even more. The village wasn't on high alert until the elders revealed who the silver-haired teenager was. After they had left, the Yondaime's threat of execution quickly put an end to the civilians' demands that they find Satsuki and kill the demon who was responsible for her disappearance, which they had also learned about from her purported brother. The Uchiha heiress said, "I think we should rest up a bit, Naruto-kun." He answered, "Are you sure? There could be demons around the area?" just before he heard an engine roar. Satsuki pulled out a kunai and flared her 3-tomo Sharingan, asking, what is that?" When he saw a red mechanical figure racing toward him, Naruto pulled out Kurama. He didn't turn pale until he saw the woman riding it. This woman had black hair and heterochromic eyes, green, brown, I believe, and she appeared to be between 19 and 20 years old. She was dressed like a schoolgirl, complete with red knee-high combat boots and a variety of weapons on her back, including sidearms, dual SMGs, and her signature bayonet rocket launcher. DMC3 appearance, M. Mary, he exclaimed as the girl pulled out Kalina Ann, rammed the bayonet into the devil's chest as she flew by, then pulled the trigger, launching him skyward. The rocket exploded a few seconds later, causing Naruto to hilariously fall to the ground. "Where do you get off, leaving without saying goodbye? I swear you starting to act more like Dante," she asked as the motorbike came to a stop by his fallen self. Mary saw how the girl looked at him before they both stared at each other after Satsuki helped the former blonde get up. Satsuki glared at the woman for injuring her friend, and demanded, "Who are you?" "My name is Mary, but you can call me Lady. As for who I am, I'm Naruto's lover," she said. As he slowly turned to face Satsuki, who was glowing ominously, the silver-haired devil felt dread. "Naruto," she said, and the former blonde sobbed anime tears. The village of Kirigakure reverberated with the sounds of gunfire and clashing blades as both rebellion and devoted Kiri shinobi fought through rooftops and streets under intense attack. Every wall, window, and floor was covered in blood. Many local residential areas had been destroyed by fires. Over his running ebony and ivory, Dante yelled, "Hey Nero, how long until May gets here?" He yelled back, "She's still aiding her troops in the southern area. We've got to hold up until Virgil gets here," as he used bone-crushing force to slam an enemy shinobi. Sweden. Hanryu, water release, tearing torrent. When Nero called forth Cerberus, the tripartite nunchaku, his devil bringer glowed brightly. The jutsu was frozen solid after just one swing. The ninja was quickly dispatched after he produced the blue rose double-barrel revolver, saying, "Naruto better hurry his too. All this bloodlust will attract the demons into the area." In a flawless multi-slash, Hanketsu Kato, Judgment Cut, split numerous opposing shinobi in half. "Trish, Virgil, the hell took so long?" Nero questioned as powerful electrical bolts protected the devils from any additional incoming jutsu. As the ground started to tremble, Trish paused, saying, "We've got bigger problems to worry about." Not these things again, Dante thought as the shinobi forces seized fire as they watched two whale eel-like demons hover over the skies as a blue, ethereal barrier gradually but steadily encircled the village and island. The demons were actually hybrids. They had three eel-like tails that they used to swim through the skies, and their mouths resembled those of a baleen whale, which had rather sharp, jagged teeth. This type of demon was called the Leviathan. Flashback. 3 days before the attack, Zabuza, how nice to see you. Didn't think you'd come back after your little assassination attempt. Like I've got nothing better to do, humph. Sure you don't. I however would like to know who your guests a little more. Mei Terumi, the rebellion's leader and the final pure-blooded user of Futen and Yoden, came before the group. There was something about the four attackers, except for Haku, that exuded a malevolent aura, despite her usual composure and joy. He turned to face Virgil, who nodded back. I guess it couldn't hurt to tell, right? He asked. They look like humans, but they're not. Mei was cautious not to set off her chakra. So they're demons, she said, fully aware that there were some out there who pretended to be people in order to approach their targets. She cautiously reached for a kunai, but the sound of a running motor stopped her. Several of her soldiers had already fallen victim to the same tactic and would not have to suffer the same fate anymore. Ladies here, Dante thought, but Virgil continued to stare at Mei. I would suggest you release the blade in your hand. We aren't just some pathetic lesser beings that would die to the steel of man, he said. The entire base was on high alert at this point, and a boy with blue hair, glasses, and typical Kiri shinobi attire landed in front of Mei brandishing a sword that was oddly bandaged. Dante added, he's right, beautiful, swords like those ain't gonna kill us. Just before Trish gave him a head wrap. Listen, I know you all have a history with demons, we have too. We will never under any circumstances harm the innocent, Nero said as he sighed and intervened. We're devils. This immediately increased the tension, and a few prepared hand signals. Another blue-haired man with an eye patch demanded, and why should we believe anything you say? Because whether you like it or not, we're the best chance you've got at winning this war. They said as they turned to see a fourth person with silver hair, followed by a teenager with a Uchiha fan on her shoulder and a slightly older woman. Our mother was a human named Eva. She was murdered 5 years ago by a pack of demons that raided our home. Our father was in fact one of the greatest demons ever known, was killed because he had fallen in love with her. Their relationship, our birth, was a crime against the netherworld. They died to protect us. Everyone was listening. Demons, angels, gods, devils, whatever the hell you want to call them, as long as we're still breathing, we're gonna find them and put a bullet in their fucking skulls, Naruto said. You'd really turn your back on your own kind to protect the very race they would sooner kill than let live? Mei responded. Our father did the same. There's no reason why we can't. Besides, we've been killing demons for a while. There's no reason to stop now, Dante continued. Having 6 demon-slaying demons and Uchiha would most definitely give us an advantage in this war, Mei decided, standing quietly. I'm not a, Nero muttered, lady, roll with it. Mei, are you really considering this? Ao inquired. Yagura has us on the ropes. We can hardly send a message to our camps without them intercepting our carrier. Not to mention they have a Jinchuriki in their arsenal. The best thing is to have someone who knows how to bring them down if they're ever released. So, I take it we're in? Dante asked. Mei nodded and had them follow her. We're preparing a full-scale assault in 72 hours. Our forces are at full force, but we are quickly running low on supplies. We have absolute zero contact with the surrounding villages, and I highly doubt they'll lend a hand. You're right on that. All the main villages strive to be the most resourceful. They'd sooner level Kiri to the ground than aid it, Satsuki said. The closest village here is in Nami no Kuni, but they're still recovering from poverty and barely have anything to provide, Haku said. So we're out of options? Sadly, yes. Not just that, Virgil says to them. The longer the battle wages, the higher chances of encountering a demon will rise. Mei rubs her forehead, adding to the complexity. Naruto responds. Demons are attracted to bloodlust. I'd say we've got a good 2 or 3 hours before the village is swarmed by them. Alright, simple then. We just gotta get to Yagura before the demons arrive, Zabuza thought. Satsuki answered. Yeah, and we've got to plow through an army before reaching him. Then there's also their Jinchuriki. If he sees that his forces are retreating, he'll let it loose. Mary's thoughts, not to mention Yagura's a cage. He won't go down without a fight. Everyone turns to face Trish when she says, unless Naruto takes the shot. Did you forget already? Kurama's 7th form? Naruto retreats sheepishly. Zabuza said, do you mind filling us in? Kurama was taken out of his holster by Naruto, who then had everyone watch as the kanji changed to 7 and transformed into a ballista sniper rifle. Dante smirked and said, you had him upgraded? Yup. You want to hear the full summary or the short? He asked Mei. But there would be plenty of time for it later. Short, she replied. Neither she nor any of her shinobi had ever seen such a weapon, and they would naturally want to know about it. I can kill at about .93 miles without him realizing it. Both Ao and Zabuza said, you can't be serious. Even though 93 was less than a mile, it was still a respectable distance, but that was to be expected given that the Devil Arm was actually a bolt-action rifle that fired heavy yokai rounds. Dead serious. Only problem is getting into the village undetected, and even so I'll need a good vantage point. I know a place, Shojiro interrupted, and Mei gave the all-clear. He approached the map and said, here just north of the tower, there's a path underneath the cliffside with a clear view of the cage's office, but the problem is that it's also a scout post and you're most likely going to find 1 or 2 shinobi there. Seems simple enough. Mary, you still got your silencer? Got it. Right then. Mary's with me. We're gonna need you ready in case we're compromised. Very well, but we'll still need a way to contact our base camps, so Ao and Zabuza will do, Mei said, cupping her chin and nodding. Satsuki and Haku sighed but followed instructions, saying, Naruto, help me bring my bike in. They then gave the Heterochromia Demon Slayer a light glare. When Dante noticed the two expressions, he looked at his younger brother and his lover and realized what was going on. Oh, ha 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 ha, that's classic. The devil grinned as Nero whispered in his ear, what is? After 3 days, 0 hour at moments like these, when Naruto was slicing through the extremely thin cliffside, he wished he could absorb Alistair into his devil bringer. When he eventually reached the post, he saw that there were 3 shinobi in all. There's 2 in front and another in the back. You're up, Naruto said, lowering himself with his hands gripping the ledge as Mary passed over him. When she saw the blood running down his nose, she kicked him in the face. She muttered, pervert, since she knew he was looking at her underwear. Naruto tilted his head a couple of times, suggesting that one was approaching them, and they heard, what was that? When one of the ninjas stuck out their heads, Mary grabbed him and dragged him away from the rocky cliffs. Mary intervened and splattered his teammates' brains across the wall before his shout could draw them in. When Naruto got up and entered, he saw Mary take the silencer out of her handgun. Are you ready? Kurama asked, changing into his sniper form and taking his place. Naruto was able to see the light inside the office through the scope, but it was hard to see his target because of the fog. Kurama, use infrared. The line of sight was dark violet in background, and his target was outlined in an orange spectrum, which indicated its body heat. He heard someone say, Naruto, do you see a Yagura? Over his ear. The guy sitting by desk, I see him. Are your forces ready? Ready. From this end. Many held their breath, waiting to hear the gunshot that would put an end to the protracted conflict. All right, I'm taking the shot. With scope in alignment, a kunai struck the barrel and deflected the bullet. As soon as Naruto squeezed the trigger, Yagura was narrowly missed as the yokai-enhanced ammunition tore through the desk and blasted through the windows. I've been compromised. Begin the assault, he said through the earpiece as the alarm reverberated throughout the village. Mei inquired, where's Yagura now? As he leapt off the cliff with Mary right behind him, he said, he's getting, I'm on pursuit. He frowned when he saw the first shinobi that Mary had thrown overboard. Kurama quickly shot the poor man with a clip after transforming back into his handgun form. The village started to explode, and soon after, there were gunshots. The flashback has ended. The flames that Satsuki sprayed in Kaden, Karyu Enden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, were transformed into a realistic-looking dragon. Haku unleashed a tundra of frozen spikes in Hyeten, Hisatsu Hyoso, Ice Release, certain kill ice spears. Yoden, Yoyu Kanketsuzan, Lava Release, Lava Scourge. Mei struck the earth with her fist, causing numerous waves of scourging lava to emerge from below. I'm almost out of chakra. The majority of shinobi were burning off their chakra in both Tai and ninjutsu as the battle continued for 2 hours and was now in its 3rd hour. Zabuza only wiped the blood off Kabikirabocho when the earth started to tremble, putting the rebellion on the verge. They're here, he muttered as a humanoid demon descended from the sky, brandishing steel-fractured armor, tears streaming from their eyes, and a mechanical spear in place of their right arm. An Harpy, DMC. Incoming, he exclaimed, and the harpies fired their spear-like appendages with glass-shattering shrieks. As she tore through both enemy shinobi and demons, Lady accelerated. Her bike time slowed when a huge, rat-like, feral demon sprang from an alleyway. If it hadn't had its head pinned to the ground by a glowing red blade, it would have almost tackled her off. An DMC Rage. With Lucifer on his back, Naruto flew over his head, dodging and slashing at harpies that got in his way. Guys, get down, He yelled as he dove down, shooting numerous blades at ground enemies before detonating them. After shortly spotting his siblings, he turned to see that he had already departed. All right, everyone is focused on the demons. Nero, Trish, you two take east. Dante, Mary, you two head west. Virgil, he said. Lucifer opens his wings and soars once more. Okay, last I saw Yagura was heading north. I better follow. Good luck, you guys. Dante spun Ebony and Ivory around and said, okay, you heard, little bro, come on girls. Let's dance. Satsuki moaned as the rat tried to maul her, pinning her to the ground with an arm beneath its throat. The Uchiha heiress struggled as she reached for a kunai. Its fangs bared as it snapped its jaws at her. She pulled out the knife and jammed it into the rat's throat, causing the demon to roar in agony as she continued to poke the blade in and out of it, drawing the rage closer to her face. How thick is its hide, exactly? Before Zabuza kicked it off her and severed its head, she pondered. You okay? I'll live. It's getting worse. May, what are your orders? There's too many of them. Call a full retreat, she commanded, pinning a harpy to the ground, tearing off its wings, and then sinking a kunai into the back of its head. Zabuza turned to face Yagura's forces and the invading demons, who were also debating the idea. You heard the lady. Retreat, he yelled. What about Naruto and the others? Biting her bottom lip, Satsuki said, they can handle themselves, now come on, and hurried off with Zabuza. Alongside Naruto, after leaving a cave with two Anbu by his side, Yagura gazed up at the sky, his eyes reflecting Sharingan with an eyebrow raised. He asked, demons? Bring her out, it looks like we'll be needing her sooner than expected, he said. Hi, two more Anbu exclaimed as they left with a brunette in chains. Naruto didn't say, not getting away this time, until he landed in front of them while Kurama was in akimbo SMG form. HMPH, so you were the one who attempted to assassinate me. Yagura waved his guards to retreat and produced their Jinchuriki, saying, yeah, what of it? I think it's time for the Sanbi to have a little fun. Shall we start with you? Rin? Naruto exclaimed as he saw the woman in front of him, her icy, emotionless eyes and the violet stripes on her cheeks.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.